Order the school board district business meeting on January 12th. It is 6 p.m. and this meeting is being audio taped. Would everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and presentation of colors by Sebastian River High School Naval Junior ROTC under the direction of Master Gunnery Sergeant James R. O'Neill, USMC, retired.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And salute. Ready? Two. Post. Forward. One.
Thank you. Please be seated. Now I ask of the adoption of the orders of the day. I've already had a request to pull items, consent item C. Do I have any others?
You poll consent I, please.
Any others? I'll entertain a moment of the adoptions of the orders of the day.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0, Ms. Stang. Any presentations? No presentations?
No presentation tonight, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. And now is the area on our agenda for citizen input. Many of you have placed forward a request to speak, have filled out a form to speak. We ask that you be mindful that our policy is 3 minutes, and so be respectful of others and try to conclude your thoughts at the time of within that boundary. I'll call your name, and you can come up to the podium and speak. The first person will be Rashana, if I've got that right, Rashanti Scott. Please come forward. And can you state your name again? Just
It's Rashanti Scott. I'm sorry. All right, so I'm here today to speak on Coach Joe's behalf based on his character. I've had him for 3 years, my 10th through 12th grade year, and those 3 years were phenomenal. I looked at him as a father figure to me when I was going through hard times at home. I had no one to talk to. He's who I went to. He's been like a mentor, a teacher. He's been all of that to all of his students. I've seen a difference in students where some teachers would have a hard time controlling him based on behavior or anything like that. The advisors or our guidance, they would put them in his class. I've seen it, Glenn Smith, they put him in his class and no problems at all. So I feel like if he can take students where no other teacher could actually handle them, for him to be able to do that, that shows that he impacts a lot of people's lives. He's impacted mine, my best friend. It's all of us. In his classroom, it's very loving. There's no doubt why you should not keep this man. I think that'd be the worst decision that you guys can make. You're missing out. The other students are missing out on what type of teacher and what type of lover he is, because he's a very loving and a very caring person, and I feel like he deserves a second chance. He always told us, if I did it, I would tell you I did it. If I didn't do it, I didn't do it. That's just what type of person he was. He was very honest. If he told you he didn't do it, that's it. But I feel like he do deserve another chance. Thank you.
Thank you. I would ask that you hold your, I think it would be respectful to hold, I mean, our policy usually would be with applause, but please be respectful for the time, too, as well, that it takes up. Next person would be Ms. Spalding.
My name is Barbie Spalding. My son recently graduated in 2015. Coach Joe was his football coach when he started his freshman year. Just as you heard the young lady say, Coach Joe is more than just a teacher. He is someone that you can depend on, someone that you can talk to. My son had some problems at home that we were going through. My father had become very ill, and Coach Joe sensed this in my son, and he took the time to sit and talk with my son and just listen to what was going on with him. My son struggled his senior year. We lost my father to cancer, and it was Coach Joe that was there that had the open door to give him the opportunity to come in and talk to him. And Coach Joe just really reached out to him, and I'm very thankful for that. And I think that he is a true asset to Sebastian. It would be very sad to see him released. I just really hope that you take into consideration how many kids he has touched throughout his teaching, and we look at him more as family than as a teacher now. He's just been there for our family, and I'm very grateful for that, because he is the reason why my son was able to graduate, because he was ready. He was at a point where he was ready to give up, and Coach Joe pushed him to make sure that he finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spalding. Next person is Heidi Putnam.
Hi, my name is Heidi Putnam. I was involved as a volunteer on the Sebastian River Touchdown Club, the football boosters. 1 year as a secretary, the next year as the treasurer, then 2 years as a president. Worked very closely with Coach Joe. Went to him many times for guidance, whether it was with the kid, whether it was with the parent, whether it was with the coach, not him, a different coach. My son was in a very serious car accident. He called me, he wanted to make sure everything was okay. He's reached out to many parents, many parents, questioning, is the kid okay? He'd call me, did you hear anything about this kid? What's going on? He is a true asset to that high school. There are many kids. I would sit in his classroom, and kids would come in, talk to him as if he was a parent. And I believe a lot of these kids probably don't have another parent at home to talk to. Letting him go is a mistake. He should be there. He should be there for those kids, as the young woman said. He's an asset to that school. He's an asset to those children. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandon Martirana.
Hi, my name is Brandon. I just wanted to read you what I wrote today. Coach Joe is the most inspirational person I know. When we think of Coach Joe, we don't think of him as a teacher. We think of him like one of our own family members. Coach Joe has impacted our lives in ways that you can never imagine a teacher could. Coach Joe is always there for us no matter what, so now it's our turn to be there for him. He is the most understanding and intelligent teacher. If you ever have a problem with something, he is there to fix it. All he cares about is our success. His class is the best class that all of us have ever had. Because he doesn't treat us like just students, he treats us like we would treat his own kids. And we don't see him as a teacher, we see him as a second father. He's the reason why some students come to school every day, because that's how much he has impacted our lives and that's how much we care about him. If you don't let Coach Joe come back, you're not just letting him down, but you're letting all of his students down. Because that would be like taking our father away from us. And family always sticks together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jorge Lugo? Or George?
Good evening, board members. I'm here to speak about Coach Joe Nathaniel, as many of the students that are here this evening are as well. I'm very proud to see so many kids here in support of Joe Nathaniel. While you'll hear great emotional stories from these kids, I'm going to offer you something a little bit different and a different perspective, and hopefully in support of Mr. Nathaniel. As a former teacher here in Indian River County, and as a former executive board member to the Teachers Union, I can tell you that the situation with Mr. Nathaniel is one that, as one of my former students here pointed out, that I could have easily have found myself in as a teacher in my years here in Indian River County. You will rarely find a teacher who has not had an emotional time within their school. My concern here is the message that this school board can send, and that the superintendent, you, Dr. Rendell, can send to the community, to the students at large, by terminating such a teacher as Mr. Nathaniel. My wife is still employed here in Indian River County as a guidance counselor at Vero High. And I fear the day that there aren't teachers like Mr. Nathaniel who are willing to step into difficult situations within the school, who are willing to risk themselves, their safety, for those around them, teachers and students and support staff alike. Is Mr. Nathaniel wrong? That is up for you to decide. But to terminate him sends the message that if you step up, if you do not fall back, if you do what you believe is right, you can and will be punished, and you can be punished harshly. Here's a man who has done numerous positive things for this county, for numerous students, as you can see here this evening. Yet, what could be his only mistake that he has had here in Indian River County is forcing him to fight for his employment here, forcing him to fight for the job that he loves, to be with the students that he loves. Please consider the ramifications of such a decision. To terminate Mr. Nathaniel sends a message that when you step up for what you believe is correct, you can be punished. As a former union member, as a former executive board member to the teachers union here in Indian River County, I say without a shadow of a doubt, if I still held my position, I would absolutely, positively turn to my fellow teachers and tell them, do nothing for fear, because you have families. Please consider the ramifications of your decision.
Thank you, Mr. Lugo. Selma Bamis? Selma Bamis, please. Am I saying that wrong? Selma? Selena? Sienna?
Sierra?
Bamus, B-A-M-U-S? I'm so sorry. Thank you.
All right. Look around you. There's teachers, parents, previous students, students he has now, and students that don't even have him are here. We are here because we want Coach Joe back. We want our teacher, our mentor, our friend. Coach Joe has been there for his students and for kids he doesn't even have. It's our time to do the same for him. He doesn't deserve this. He shouldn't get terminated over a kid who has a slick mouth and problems with authority. Coach Joe isn't just a teacher or a friend, he's family. For the 50 minutes we have him, we are his babies. He'd do anything for us. My other 6 teachers don't have an atmosphere like in their classroom like he does. He makes learning fun. Everything that we talk about, he can relate it to criminal justice. He has inspired me to go into law enforcement. And with that being said, I leave with you this note. Let him continue to teach, to inspire, to be there for someone who has no one. Bring Coach Joe back, please.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Gavin Bruger.
I want to tell you now that what I'm about to say is very personal and straightforward. My name is Gavin Bruger, and I really wasn't planning on speaking until I talked to a fellow classmate of mine. She got me thinking that I have to, and that's Coach Joe. Thought about how much of a positive influence Coach Joe had on me, and I don't want anyone to cut me off, while I'm talking about this. It's very personal. Coach Joe gave me 95% of my motivation to go to college. And if you know me like Mr. Wilson, Ms. Keaton, Ms. Ward, and Mr. Racine all know me, then you would know I was the opposite of the ideal student. Before I met Coach Joe and actually got to know him, I had straight Fs, got suspended every 2 weeks, was about ready to drop out of school. After being in his class for only 3 weeks, I realized he cares about his students. He likes what he does, he loves what he does. He turned down a 6-figure-a-year job to dedicate his efforts to be a great teacher. He was the only teacher to reach out to me, and he kept it real. Coach Joe has a lot more of the students' respect than the principal of Sebastian High School does, I can tell you that. In conclusion, if you don't believe anyone else, check this out. I give this all to Coach Joe. I graduated on time with AB Honor Roll. I am attending IRSC majoring in business administration. I actually had to miss the second part of my first day of class to be here right now. I completed my first semester with a 4.0 GPA. I'm working full-time and going to school full-time. I have bank managers interested in me, trying to get me a job. I just had the president of Primerica call me 3 hours ago. He wanted to talk to me. Told him I couldn't make it. I had to be here for Coach Joe. I had to be there for the man that gave me all the inspiration and all the motivation I got right now. I'm 100% for Coach Joe, and I thank him for everything. Coach Joe, you always had me. Now it's my turn to get you, and may God bless you and your family and your children and all of that.
Amanda Hill. Amanda Hill. One more time for Amanda Hill.
My name's Amanda. I have not always been the person that I am today. When I was younger, I was the kid that challenged authority. What adults had to say meant nothing to me. I was always out to prove them wrong. When I was a freshman in Sebastian High School, I had Coach Joe's class, and I had an incident in the hallway with another student. Afterwards, I walked into Coach Joe's class with an attitude. I didn't like the assignment that he had told me to do, and I began to backtalk him, and I was being very disrespectful to him. He ended up sending me to the office, and Miss Ward looked at me and said, "You must have done something wrong. He doesn't send anybody to the office." From that point on, I respected Coach Joe like he was a father to me. There was something about him that was able to calm me down and make me understand what was going on. Every time I had an issue or I was acting out of line, I would go to Coach Joe and talk to him, collect myself, and go back to class. He talks to his students like they were his own kids, not like he was better than us, not like we needed to respect him because he was a teacher, but to respect him because he respected us. I personally believe that it would be a mistake to fire Coach Joe because that would potentially take a chance away from him and another student in which Coach Joe helps to change their life. It could be that a student's interaction with Coach Joe is what they need to turn their life around and be a productive and contributing member to our community, just like my interaction with Coach Joe did for me.
Thank you. Lauren Brunicardi.
I'm Lauren Brunicardi. Coach Joe is a man who has impacted our lives so much we would go to the end of the earth to bring him back. He's a man with the biggest heart you could ever imagine, and he's a part of the reason I've grown into the person that I am today, and I couldn't thank him enough for that. I could never think of ending my senior year without him. He has become more than just another teacher, he's become like another dad. His class is more than just another class, it's a second home, and we love him more than anyone could ever know. And on behalf of my brother, Caleb Brunicardi, who couldn't be here today, he would like me to say that Coach Joe is the biggest inspiration to every student he has and remembers being in his criminal justice class. And not only learning about criminal justice, but learning about morals and values. Coach Joe had a way of doing that. He would always incorporate things into his lessons to inspire his kids. My brother remembered a time in his senior year where Coach Joe told his class on his plan of helping a family from his church with their Christmas. He was doing it out of his own pocket. Caleb's class stopped what they were doing, got in their wallets, and gave him whatever cash they had to help. Caleb also remembered when a student showed up into one of his classes with old worn shoes. He asked my brother what size he thought the student wore and bought a new pair for the student. Caleb likes to give credit to Coach Joe with helping him decide to join the U.S. Navy to protect and serve our country, just like Coach Joe protects his kids. My brother knows Coach Joe for who he really is and what he's really gone through, and he has backed him through everything and continues to do so. Coach Joe would never risk his career for something petty. He would only stand up for himself if he thought he was doing so, was protecting his kids. Coach Joe is our dad at school and for some outside of school as well, and he is protecting his kids like any dad would do.
Thank you. Muriel Ramos.
Good evening. My name is Muriel Ramos. As a mom of 5, I am compelled to be here to voice my concern regarding the termination of Joe Nathaniel. 2 of my sons are graduates from Sebastian River High School, and I presently have a son that's a senior there right now. Back in November, my son Daniel asked if I had any baby items to donate for a young lady, a fellow female student about to deliver her first child. When my son told me it was a teacher orchestrating the donations, I was impressed. That exemplifies a teacher going above and beyond. When my son told me it was Coach Joe, it was even more profound to me because it was a male teacher stepping up to assist a young lady in a crisis pregnancy. Let's face it, we all know if more men stepped up to their roles as fathers, there'd be a lot less crisis pregnancies. My son then told me another story about Coach Joe, helping a student with financial challenges. Coach Joe assisted that student with their graduation fees, their cap, gown, etc. As a mom, these 2 stories really tugged on my maternal heartstrings. My son's respect and admiration for Coach Joe has always been apparent whenever he would speak of him. Then the unfortunate incident took place. I saw the video, but this did not change my opinion of Coach Joe. Teaching high school kids nowadays is no day at the beach, I am sure. Why this troubled student was attending Sebastian River High School is beyond my humble understanding. Why was he being forced to attend school when it would appear he did not want to be there? I had to wonder if this young man was getting any discipline at home. Did he have a dad taking an active, positive role in his life? I'm sure his mother is doing the best she can, but a father in the picture, contrary to what we've been led to believe, does make a difference. Who suffers? The students that are attending the school trying to be educated for their adulthood. A student this disruptive is making the learning environment virtually impossible. Unfortunately, there is an epidemic crisis in our society of absentee fatherhood syndrome, and it is reaping chaos. If more men were taking the role of fatherhood more seriously, teachers wouldn't have to be spending so much time disciplining in the classroom. Yes, no one wants to hear the truth. This is the elephant in the room. This is a problem prevalent throughout our society. It's a shame that good teachers like Coach Joe have to worry about their livelihood every time an incident breaks out. From what my son has told me about his peers' huge support for Coach Joe, it would appear he has been mentoring and fathering a lot during his tenure at Sebastian River High School. Let this good teacher back in the classroom where he belongs. I'm sure he has suffered and been punished enough. If he has not returned to his occupation, his passion, his vocation, you send a dangerous
Ramos,
message.
please wrap up, please, so we can, thank you.
To every troubled student there. They will perceive it as a free pass, and it will embolden them to act out more out of fear of repercussion, no fear for repercussions.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. Daniel Ramos?
Hi, my name is Daniel Ramos. I'm a senior at SRHS, and I've been a student of Coach Joe's for the past 3 years. The curriculum taught by Coach Joe goes much deeper than just criminal justice. He constantly is telling and encouraging us to invest in ourselves and to become the best we can be. He's more than just a teacher. He's a father figure and a role model. School doesn't feel the same without him. I miss the in-depth class conversations we would always have. I miss his endless stories and jokes. I miss him constantly motivating me to do the best I can.
Thank you. Ms. Liz Cannon?
Good evening. Liz Cannon, Indian River County Education Association President. I'm here to speak about the termination of Joe Nathaniel. After reading only the information in the letter or seeing the sensationalized news stories, it's no wonder the decision was made as it was. But the charging letter does not provide all the facts. There was considerable information omitted from the letter. So before you decide to end a man's career, please seek all the facts. The letter said nothing about how the student in question was behaving. It said nothing about how the student shouted obscenities at the teacher in the presence of other students. It said nothing about how the desk that was flipped over by the student, potentially endangering other students and staff. It said nothing about the blatant disrespect the student showed both Mr. Nathaniel and the other staff and students present. This last omission leads me to another point. Disrespectful, defiant, and violent behavior of students has increased exponentially. In the School District of Indian River County Code of Student Conduct, on page 10, students are told they have the responsibility to treat others with respect and courtesy. I have personally watched the disintegration of respect by so many students without any consequence. Teachers are told we need to find better ways to relate to these students. Teachers become the scapegoats for society's ills, and student behavior becomes even more unacceptable. We are basically told to lower our standards of expected behavior, regardless of the decay of appropriate behavior in our schools. Each time you choose not to support a teacher who has been treated with disrespect, defiance, and violence, you empower these students to increase their appalling behavior. At what point will we say this behavior has gone too far? When will we say our teachers should not be treated with such egregious contempt? When will we elevate our expectations on polite societal conduct? I know that tonight you are only voting on whether to suspend Mr. Nathaniel without pay pending the outcome of the hearing to contest his termination, but I implore you to remember that he has been a dedicated employee with a clean record and has clearly earned the respect of students, colleagues, and parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony Brown.
Good afternoon. Anthony Brown, President of the Indian River County branch of the NAACP. First and foremost, I go along with everything that is said about Coach Joe. I'm biased. He's a personal friend of mine. I've been with him for 11 years coaching at Sebastian River High School. But what God blessed me with this afternoon, something none of you did. I sat down with Mr. Nathaniel and his family and the family of Isaiah, Mrs. Pryor. It was an awesome moment. We have children that have issues. Isaiah's mother had gave no excuses for Isaiah's behavior, but she also asked Mr. Nathaniel to accept his. It was a beautiful occasion, something I felt you all should have done before rushing to judgment, where people are saying he threw a chair, it's egregious behavior. No, this is a man doing what he's told to do. When is it all right for a teacher to be responsible for their safety and the safety of the children that they have custodial control of? We're missing the point. We need to go back, and we all know, I know, that this is far bigger than Mr. Nathaniel and Isaiah. They are scapegoats. We are destroying two families Please note this. Isaiah is being destroyed. His mother was spit on. Mr. Nathaniel is being destroyed. This is not the way to do this. The morale in the Indian River County School District is going to hell in a basket. I told Dr. Rendell, we are dysfunctional. And this is an opportunity for you all to stand in the gap, do what is right, do what is responsible. Joe Nathaniel made a mistake. One of you sitting up there tell me you have not made a mistake. Are you going to destroy this man for a mistake? Are you going to take his teaching certification for a mistake? He's been through enough. Isaiah has been through enough. Ms. Pryor has been through enough. Let's stop this. Let's stop it now. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda will be the consent agenda with the removal of item C and item I. I'll entertain a motion.
Approval. Second.
Motion by Mr. McCain, second by Mr. Searcy. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0, Ms. Stang. First, okay, thank you. Item C, Mr. Morrison has pulled.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we asked to pull item C. It's a budget amendment, so Mr. Morrison wanted to go through that and explain it to each of the board members.
Thank you very much, Dr. And good evening, board members. Good evening to those in attendance this afternoon and those who may be viewing us over the internet. Board members, before you should have a handout, which I'd asked Dr. Endell to distribute to you via various holding spaces there. If you could turn into the document on page 2 of 9, it is about about 5 pages in. And I have indicated on there item number 3, which is the amendment for impact fees received during the period of $444,748. On page 3 of 9, on November 17th, due to a Microsoft Excel error, that number appeared on the summary on the consolidated sheet as $347,862. So it caused a mathematical error. In addition, on page 7 of 9, consent C for that same board meeting, on the other capital funds, it also showed that amount incorrectly. So the item before you tonight is to reflect the $444,748 that we received in impact fees for that time period, and is corrected for the record. Inadvertently, the superintendent did sign the incorrect one that we sent to him for signature, but the board did not approve the correct consolidated summary sheet.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion, Ms. Jimenez?
No, just thank you for bringing it to our attention and making the appropriate correction.
Mr. Searcy?
Did you say it was a computer error or human error?
Yes, sir. We had inadvertently, Microsoft Excel didn't pick up that cell correctly because we have detailed spreadsheets behind the summary sheet and didn't carry forward correctly. So the number of $347,000 was inadvertently picked up. We actually received over $96,000 more than that. The narrative behind the summary sheet reflected the $444,000, but the summary sheet did not, which is why we're bringing it forward for correction on the record.
Any further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0, Ms. Stang. Item I from the consent agenda. Ms. Jimenez, was that you?
Yes, thank you. I pulled this item when I read through this school improvement plan. I saw that there was a lot of data missing, but Mr. Green explained that the reason why the data is missing is because this is the alternative school, and so the way they're coded and so on and so forth is different, so that's fine. But one of the things that caught my attention that actually has to do with the issue that many of you have brought up today around the challenges of parenting today and the challenges that our young men and young women face is the fact that sometimes they don't have adults in their lives that are looking out for them. And so one of the things that I thought was interesting in this school improvement plan is the mention of a mentor-mentee program for these students. The ACE has approximately 62 students. That number fluctuates. So I had some questions about this mentoring program. I wanted to know if all the students have a mentor, how often they meet, how are these mentors trained, and does the board need to be aware of any additional financial support that would be needed in order to encourage this kind of program? And of course, what accountability is there around it? Because I think that, that is so important for students that I want to make sure that it's not just an item on an improvement plan, but it's actually something that is benefiting students. So Dr. Rendell, if somebody could address those questions, please.
Thank you, Ms. Mendez. Actually, the principal of the Alternative Center, Mr. Hart, is here, so if he can go to the microphone, he can explain what the mentoring program is there at the ACE.
Thank you.
Good evening to the board again. The mentor program initially, as we looked at and a lot of the students and a lot of the parents who have already spoken before me have spoken already so eloquently on what the needs are. So initially when I went in, looking to provide that one-on-one interaction with each student, I found that that wasn't the most effective way to approach it. So what we do every week on Friday, we extend an opportunity for the community stakeholders to come in, and they provide a variety of different communications of their experiences. Just a couple of them note, there was a young lady who had gotten pregnant when she was young. She's now the coordinator over the workforce development program. She came in and talked about her story, gave the students something that they could relate to. Everyone was at the end of their seats on pins and needles listening to her story. Then she offered the students an opportunity to develop resumes. They brought in a coordinator from workforce development. We did a program on the following Friday. They taught them how to write resumes. Then they told them how to dress. Each of those students were required to wear a shirt and tie, slacks, shoes, and some of the students asked for bow ties. They wanted to be able to go and look really nice when they had these interviews. We took the students down to Fort Pierce to a job fair in which they had an opportunity to meet the different vendors and communicate with them firsthand on what it takes in order for them to gain an employment, what type of educational background, so on, et cetera. In fact, out of that experience, the workforce development also presented us with a plaque. Out of the 20-30 high schools that were there, we were one of the 10 schools that were recognized for having a good group of students there with their resumes written properly, they looked properly, communicated effectively with those vendors who were there. That's just one example where we bring people in who have real-world experience, and they're able to meet the students at their needs. Now, there may not have been a young lady there who was pregnant. However, there may be someone who now have made a better choice or decision about their lives, because she's even talked about what divorce and what single parenting, how it impacted their home. Secondly, there was a student that I used to work with years ago. He came in, he's now the president over Crossroads Ministry, and he came in and spoke to our students about his life. Most of the students that were there can identify with his story, and he explained to them, this is in a whole group setting versus the one-on-one interaction. Like I stated earlier, we found that not to be the most effective tools because, as was stated earlier here in the building, often students are not so willing to accept the type of advice people give in a one-on-one moment, even though those persons had the best intentions. But you have to be able to know how to relate to young people, and I found that wasn't the most effective way to approach that. So when you ask about the question of, how do we prepare them, how do we equip them, and is anything additional or special that can be done, I will say this: I am deeply thankful for those who have come and accepted. In fact, we have also partnered with what's called, Dr. Rendell helped me with this, Hope.
Kids at Hope.
Kids at Hope, and we came in and we have a new philosophy now. Every morning we stand up in our announcements, and as a staff, we talk about how we see what's best in students. And the students have to turn around, and they have to also state what they see that's best in themselves. And we always leave our announcements that morning, or we always start our announcements by saying that we believe all students can succeed with no exception. And believe it or not, the young lady who stood up and said she was tough and didn't like authority, about 75% of my population is that way. And now they're really turning their mindset around because they truly believe that the teachers and the staff and those others who have impact in their life really believed in them. And they're starting to make a difference. In fact, we're getting ready to transition about 9 students back to their home school as a result of different persons coming in with their life experiences, explaining it to them, letting them know they were just like they were, but when they developed and they began to become more mature, they make different decisions. So it's not a one-on-one initially, because in the beginning, you do this in the beginning of the school year, you try to pull all these things together, but when the rubber meets the road, you see some of the constraints that you may have, and because this is a fluent document, we continue to evolve and to increase our capabilities of being able to foster the needs of our students through mentorship.
Well, thank you for your leadership. I think it's wise to, you start something, you see if it works or if it doesn't,
Sure.
and you adapt and you change. So thank you for sharing that, because I couldn't have told that from reading your school.
But we do want to do a little bit more field trips, so if you want to donate a little bit more money to our budget, we will definitely take on a little bit more of our budget.
That's a good leader right there.
Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Oh, Ms. Jimenez and Mr. McCain. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0, Ms. Stang. That moves us to the action agenda portion of our evening. And first item is the item A, Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Item A is the approval of a contract extension for Senior Resource Association meals. We actually prepare meals for the Meals on Wheels program at the Storm Grove Cafeteria. This is a cost-neutral program to the district. It doesn't cost us any money. And so we're asking the board to extend that contract for another year.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. McCain. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Discussion?
Cost neutral. That's good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0, Ms. Stang. Item B, Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Chairman. Item B is the approval to issue purchase orders to International Baccalaureate. Each year, we have to place orders for testing, fees, and materials for International Baccalaureate courses and students involved in those courses. This year, that total is $145,205. We've already spent $28,480 on those fees, so we're asking for approval to spend the rest. It's coming to you for board approval because it does exceed the $50,000 cap.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you, Ms. Jimenez.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Any discussion on your motion, Ms. Jimenez?
I just, we always go back and forth about this $50,000 limit, but I think that allows us the opportunity to showcase the programs we have and what we're doing to support students and academic achievement, so I'm happy to support this action item.
Thank you, Mr. Frost.
Yes, thank you. And again, to clarify, this comes out of our operating capital, right, Dr. Rendell?
The operating budget, yes.
Operating budget, thank you. And just to let everyone know, if you care about legislation, they opened the legislature today, and there is a bill before the Senate Bill 1360, that the state would actually cover these tests for our students if it is to pass. So if you do care to get involved with your representative or senator, please send them a note and let them know that we'd like to have this come out of state funds instead of local funds, because then we can spend more locally on mentoring programs, things like that.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Frost. Anything else?
Of course,
Mr.
on
Searcy.
the IB programs, do the students pay any sort of fee to be involved in that?
No, sir.
Then does the school do any fundraising to contribute, if you could discuss that with the public?
In some of the cases, the school does do fundraising to offset these costs. Also, International Baccalaureate does reimburse us for a lot of funds associated with IB for the numbers of students who attain an IB diploma. Mr. Morrison can probably speak to that, but basically we're paying for them to be in the program, and when they earn a diploma, IB actually sends us money back. So it's not all going out the door. We actually do get a return on investment on that, and we use that to pay for these funds and that kind of thing.
So what kind of return do we get? I mean,
I don't have that figure offhand, wouldn't want to take a venture at it. Maybe Mr. Morrison?
In the state's categorical funding for the FEFP formula, we do get, I believe, a 0.16 FTE for every student that passes. We also pay from that bonuses to teachers. I believe the cap was raised to about $2,000 maximum, and that's about $50 per student. So the state does provide the funding that comes back to the program, which assists to pay for the fees and the testing materials.
Thank you.
Could you repeat that percentage? Did you say 1.6?
I believe it was 0.16.
0.16, thank you.
Above
Frost?
No, thank you. That's-
Any further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 5-0, Ms. Stang. Item C, approval of a revised construction management at-risk CMAR agreement.
Thank you, Madam
Dr.
Chair.
Rendell.
Item C is a change to our contract when we do these construction management projects. We have an attestation fee as part of when we check up to make sure we're not been overcharged. We've changed the language to indicate that if a vendor or a contractor does overcharge us for one of these contracts, if the amount of the overcharge exceeds $10,000, then that contractor, that vendor, will not only pay for the overcharges, but also will pay the fees associated with the CMAR, with the attestation fees.
I'll call for a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Jimenez. Mr. Frost?
Thank
any
you, Chair.
discussion?
Yes, I just want to thank Dr. Rendell and everyone for putting this back together after our workshop. It seems as though, and I believe we have a check tonight,
Yes, sir.
as a product of our attestation program, and it's about $140-some thousand, I believe. So that's money that was on the table that we're bringing back to the district and putting back at work in the classrooms. And candidly, this incentive for good bookkeeping hopefully will help us work better with contractors and work with contractors who are mindful of their financial responsibility.
Ms. Jimenez?
Yes, no, and I'm appreciative of the responsiveness and the turnaround in making this change. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Is this the final contract?
This contract will be utilized from this point forward for any contracts that the board signs for any construction management at risk. Contracts such as Beachland is on the horizon. So, for example, that contract would now contain this language moving forward after approval.
You might want to review page 3 of the contract as far as the page numbers and all go. There's, I was trying to find some items on it, and you need to look at that.
Okay, will do.
Any further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0, Ms. Stang. Action item D, approval of easement and bill of sale of utility facilities to the Indian River County for new administration complex. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Items D and E are actually very similar. They're both approvals for easements and the bill of sale for these utility facilities to Indian River County for both the new administration building that we're in presently, right here tonight, and for the addition of Citrus Elementary School. Mr. Morrison, any comments?
Yes, essentially, as Dr. Rendell stated, we are turning over this infrastructure to the county for maintenance. That we do have a 1-year warranty period on these facilities, on these utilities. In the event that they should fail, we do have a performance bond that the contractor has put up so that it will be repaired.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. McCain. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Jimenez. Discussion, Mr. McCain?
No, thank you.
Ms. Jimenez?
None really, other than, I think it's important that these things like maintenance of infrastructure are not the role of the school district, so we can focus on students' achievement and the program. So I'm glad that we're able to do this.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0, Ms. Stang. Item E, approval of the easement and bill of sale of the utilities facility to Indian River County for the Citrus Elementary School. This would be Part B, correct? Dr. Rendell?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. It's an identical proposal. It's just for a different building.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Frost.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. McCain. Discussion, Mr. Frost?
No, ma'am.
Mr. McCain?
No, ma'am.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0, Ms. Stang. Item F, approval of educational facilities supplementary plant survey number 5, version 3 for this school district, Indian River County. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item has to do with an update that we need to do to the facilities supplementary plant survey. We first passed that in 2013, and because we have added additional classrooms to Citrus Elementary, we need to update the survey. Mr. Morrison, anything to add?
That is spot on, Dr. Rendell. The survey that was done in 2013 essentially froze the capital outlay FTE for 5 years, so we have to amend the 5-year, amend the spot survey recommendation in order to comply with the DOE, in order to construct and add the wing at Citrus.
Thank you. I'll call for a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. McCain.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Any discussion, Mr. McCain?
No, thank you.
Mr. Frost?
Just glad we're building classrooms.
Yes. Anyone else? No, I
have a
concur,
question.
Mr. Frost. You have a question? Mr. Susi.
Well, thank you very much. Is this on page 1 of 7, the $8.4 million? Is that the total cost of that, including engineering and all that good stuff?
I am
And
actually
architecture
not
fees?
quite certain of the answer of that, but I know that the remodeling cost, I'm not sure of the answer, to be honest with you, Mr. Searcy. The only thing that changed on the update of the plan was the capital outlay student membership from 691 to the 789. I have to go back and look at the cost that was presented. It may have been an estimate at the time that the survey was done in 2013 would be my educated answer.
Well, we can certainly research that and get the information back to you.
Okay. And I guess it may not be a current question, but it's in the backup that's here, and on page 4 of 7, they talk about returning the leased relocatables. Does that cut off the lease payment for that? I've not noticed any of them leaving. I know we just keep them and move them around, but that's in the survey annotation on page 4 of 7. The last sentence in that blurb.
Yes, in 2013, that would have been the recommendation to remove out the relocatable classrooms and add any sort of permanent space. However, again, when we looked at the COFT at elementary school, we were over, so we had to do adjustments at various schools in order to increase Citrus to get that approved. So that would have been a recommendation back in 2013.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
Any further? Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 5-0. Ms. Stang? Item G, approval to terminate instructional employee Joe Nathaniel. At this time, I have citizen input. When I call your name, please come forward to the podium. Mark Walensky. And as stated before, the time limit is 3 minutes, and please be respectful. Although you can applaud, please takes away from time from others.
You could just tell by looking at me that I'd probably go over the 3 minutes, right?
No, I just
My name's Mark Walensky.
Thank you.
I am Mr. Nathaniel's lawyer, at least I was. After hearing the eloquence of some of these people and the passion and the heart that they brought before you, I don't know that Mr. Nathaniel might not do better with some of them. I would like to address the actual issue that's before you this evening and ask you to give some thought to whether or not this is a matter which should be done by rote. You heard all about Mr. Nathaniel. I can't tell you anything that you haven't heard. Hopefully I will get the opportunity at some point to tell you a number of things you haven't heard. You haven't heard about your investigation. You haven't heard that as we went to speak to the people who were involved in your investigation, we were told universally that they could not speak to us. They were warned not to speak to us. Their job would be in jeopardy if they spoke with us, that they couldn't provide any information, although they would like to. The opportunity will come when we'll be in the proper forum, and we'll get that information. I want you to know that Mr. Nathaniel was given an opportunity to respond. You've seen my letter. It's in your information. Here's what you weren't told. He was told to respond by 11 o'clock on a Friday morning. We responded about 10:30. 3-page letter. After that came the 3-page letter that you also have in your materials. By 1:30, Mr. Nathaniel was told he was being terminated. The decision had been made long before Mr. Nathaniel had the opportunity to present anything. The issue that I'm going to ask you to look at is what you're going to do from now until this matter gets resolved. You've heard, I sat here tonight and heard you doing all sorts of things to help children, all sorts of things to educate people. The most important thing that you have at your availability to educate students, educators like Joe Nathaniel. To send him out is not only devastating to his family, to say, hey, you're not working anymore. It's not only devastating to his own family, it's devastating to his extended family who are sitting here and all the students that aren't here. You do not have to send Mr. Nathaniel away without pay as you wait to consider the real facts when people are no longer able to be afraid and to refuse to speak. There are any number of places. First of all, the classroom. I heard about a mentoring program. There are any number of places where a person like Mr. Nathaniel, with all of his talents, can be utilized beneficially while this matter is resolved. I have every confidence how you're going to resolve it. Eventually, you'll hear the facts, all the facts, not a couple of pages that are written in 5 minutes. So eventually, it'll get resolved. In the meantime, Joe Nathaniel ought to be helping the students that you're here to serve. Thank you all very much.
Kathy Hill. Kathy Hill.
Check.
As you've heard earlier, my daughter went to school with Coach Joe. I'd like to tell something more about Coach Joe than just how he inspires people. Coach Joe took my daughter under his wing, and when I say he was family, it's kind of a little joke, but another kid walked in behind her and said, "Hey, Coach Joe, who's the girl with a nice butt?" And he's like, "That's my daughter." He's like, "No, no, no, the one with the nice butt." And he's like, "That's my daughter." After the third time, the kid got the clue that you don't pick on her. First of all, she's a woman. She doesn't need to be disrespected like that. So he taught my daughter that she deserves better and taught that child how to deal with a woman. I think that was fantastic. He has included her in some things that was his own personal family life. When he had her his senior year, me and my husband went before the classrooms when we were all supposed to get to know the teachers. Me and him rushed in right at the bell, and we go, "Do we make it? Do we make it?" And the thing is Coach Joe makes people be on time. Otherwise, they have to do 100 squats in front of the classroom, which I think is a lot better than having to send them to the office for some other kind of training of time out. Letting them actually sit in the class, do a little bit of physical fitness, and they still get to learn what is being said in the classroom. I think that is just phenomenal. And as I said, he has brought children inspiration, feeling of being included in his family, and just, I mean, taking everything into one big ball. All right?
Thank you. Sandra Cooper. Sandra Cooper, excuse me.
Well, I'm just going to hold it. My name is Sandra Cooper. I wanted to let everyone know that my son, Brandon, was going to quit school. Just like you heard all the stories before, my son was troubled, and it was because of Coach Joe. He graduated in 2014. God doesn't make a mistake. You know how big he is. He has a bigger heart. And to let him go would be a mistake. I just ask y'all to consider that and don't take him away from the kids because they need him. Thank you.
Gary Wallace. Gary Wallace.
Good evening, Board. My name is Gary Wallace. We moved to the county about 25 years ago, and I've had the privilege of having 3 children go through the school district. Our youngest son was blessed with 3 years of experience with Coach Joe. Tragedy, unfortunately, befalls all of us from time to time. We lost one of our children, and our youngest son took it particularly hard. Thank God there are people like Coach Joe in this world, and thank God that they are available to students like my son, because he pulled them around. And you know, to say that he was an at-risk student is not at all true, other than the emotional state. He graduated last June as an honor student. He just completed his first year at college with a 4.0 on the president's list. And my wife will speak momentarily on behalf of our son, who wanted to be here tonight to take Coach Joe's 6, but he had to report back yesterday morning. So my wife does have a note from our son. I just think that I didn't need to see evening. I was glad to see the response. My involvement in the community and knowing the myriad of stories that some of which you've heard this evening. There are countless more out there, I assure you. It would indeed be a mistake for a number of reasons to consider terminating Coach Joe Nathaniel from his avocation position within the district. So with that, I thank you, and we look forward to the resolution of this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Kim Wallace, please.
I'm going to be William Wallace for the next couple of minutes. Pretend I'm 6'6" tall. I had the privilege of having Coach Joe as a teacher for 3 years. In that time, I can truly say my life was changed for the better. The impact a teacher can have on a student's life is often overlooked. I can remember the first day of having Coach's class my sophomore year. I walked in, sat down, and waited intently for the class to begin. Most people know that most kids' favorite days of school are the first day and the last day, because the common conception is that all that occurs on the first day of a class is the reviewing of the student handbook and the course syllabus. After that, you can talk amongst yourselves, then leave when the bell rings and you are dismissed. While that may be true, it was in fact on the first day of Coach Joe's class when I learned one of the most valuable lessons of my life. This is annoying, okay. After Coach reviewed all the required documents with us, instead of just sitting down at his desk and ending class, he did something I will never forget. He approached the whiteboard, picked up a marker, and began to draw something. At first, I couldn't really tell what it was, but then I managed to see it was a tombstone. He then asked the question, "What is the most important thing on a tombstone?" To which one student replied, "The day you were born," and another said, "The date you die." Coach just simply shook his head and uttered a statement I will never forget. He said the most important thing on a tombstone is the line between the two dates. Everyone just looked around at each other with confused expressions. Coach saw this and went on to say it is the most important thing because it symbolizes what you did while you were here on earth. So you better make the best of it. There was not a day in Coach Joe's class when I did not learn something new. He made criminal justice an enjoyable experience for everybody, and the learning environment was amazing. Kids did not want to be late to his class out of sheer respect. And the squats, he did make them do that, by the way. The kids who normally gave other teachers fits always came to Coach Joe's class and did their work. The reason being is Coach Joe actually cared about his students. And we've heard that unbelievably countless times this evening. We weren't just another number to him. Over the years, our class became like family. There's that word, family. There isn't a day that goes by when I don't think about the iconic Coach Joe phrases like, sounds good, and you guys probably can relate to these. I got a grade for that, and just do you. But my personal favorite is, first, the law of nature is self-preservation. I just want to thank Coach for being not only a teacher, but a mentor and a friend. He taught me many valuable life lessons, which I will cherish for the rest of my life, and for that I am truly grateful. That being said, I want to wish Coach Joe and his family many years of peace and happiness and blessings. This is just one student that was positively influenced by this man. How many more are there out there who are not being represented here tonight? And how many more out there are yet to be influenced by this man? I worked in this school district for a while.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
It would be a mistake to let Coach Joe go, for very obvious reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith Coppell, and please, I'm sorry if did I pronounce that wrong? I know, Keith Cooper. Cooper? Oh, boy. Sorry. I apologize.
Good evening. My name is Keith Cooper. Coach Joe and his family have been friends of mine and my family for over 10 years. I've got two sons that have attended Sebastian River High School. One played football as Coach Joe was the coach for 3 years. Everything that these people have told you so far are true. Joe and I have sat on many times on my back porch just talking about students and how he's influenced their lives and problems that they've had. I've also seen the videos, the two videos of Coach Joe and this young man who was out of control, and I've also seen the video of Todd Racine and what he did. Now, it seems like a double standard that you're recommending Joe for termination, but yet, but you stood behind Todd Racine and he's still working. When he chased down a kid, tackled him, and put him in a chokehold. Have you seen the video? How can you keep him and terminate him? All he did was check him to get space. That's it. Thank you.
Dr. Ida Miller.
My name is Dr. Ida Miller. I worked in this school district since I graduated school. I'm here to speak on behalf of Joe Nathaniel. I've known Joe since I started in this county. The fact that I even have to be here and speak on his behalf in these circumstances appalls me and saddens me. Joe has dedicated his life to children. When I started in this county, I worked at Indian River Charter Academy. And he was, at that time, a behavior specialist. And he would come into the school, and all Joe would ever have to do is just come in when I called him and just tell the student, okay, come over here, we need to talk. All he had to do, the behavior would stop. It was amazing. He's an amazing person with students, always has been, and that was back then, always will be. Joe has always been amazing, and he will always be amazing. A 45-second video should not throw away years of benefits that this teacher has given and can give the school system. Teachers are leaving the school district and other school districts because they're tired of the endless barrage of garbage that districts keep heaping on teachers. Show teachers that you care and that you will stand by them when they need you. Lastly, Joe is a wonderful person that deserves the opportunity to remain a teacher in this school district. I appeal to your good senses and ask that you keep this wonderful teacher. Joe has always gone above and beyond for every student, every student. I've known him forever and a day, him and his family. I'm asking that all of you, school board members, stand behind all your teachers and Joe Nathaniel today and make a statement. Teachers do count, and our jobs do matter. Thank you. Amen.
Annis Hansen.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Janice Hansen, a mom to Adam Hansen, who is a junior and is in his second year of the criminal justice program at Sebastian River. Adam expressed an interest in law enforcement career before he entered high school, and we are excited to see that the school has a 3-year program. Now, I know that perhaps a teacher can replace Coach Joe, who is knowledgeable in the field of criminal justice, but no one can replace the shoes of Coach Joe's teaching. His style, knowledge, and experience, and his genuine love for the kids is something that is not easy to fill. I have heard more positive stories from Adam, as there have been many dinner conversations at the Hansen house about Coach Joe. We have seen Adam so excited and interested in a subject or a teacher like he is with Coach Joe. He could hardly wait for us to meet him, and when we did, it was clear that Coach Joe was doing what was very unique and captivating when it came to teaching his students, whom he referred to as his kids. I believe that removing Coach Joe from this position would be detrimental to the students he calls his kids, and very likely to reverse the career course that many of his students, like our son, Adam, are currently on. My son, Adam, my husband, Kevin, and I beg you, please, to reconsider and allow Coach Joe to continue teaching the criminal justice program, as this is the career path for Adam. And what better instructor than Coach Joe Joe giving him the valuable lessons of his career. Thank you.
Patrick Thompson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Patrick Thompson, and I probably know Joe Nathaniel better than anyone in the school, as we have been close friends for over 20 years now. I've seen him do more things with kids that nobody on this school board would even consider doing at all. Took kids from juvenile facilities who was known gang members from inner city, gang members, drug dealers. They did it, you name it, they did it. He took them, molded them, shaped them to return back to their community, to be productive in their community, from Philadelphia, Arizona, Oklahoma. Well, as we all know, as you can see now, the murder rate and shootings is very high. Now, as he entered the school district, he extended that same drive and test of fortitude to mold students in Sebastian River High School, where he's continued to do so for all of those years he has been there. And to let him go and to lose him would definitely be a detrimental loss to Indian River County and to the school district, period. Because there are a lot of more students that he has and should be molding and shaping to become and leave fine, productive citizens and citizens and students. And most important of all, as we all know, in education, as I'm in education too, we have our limits. Everybody can attest to that. Everybody handles things differently, true enough. But to allow this one incident to determine the fate of a man who has built a reputation beyond the reputation of anybody in the school district is definitely a detrimental farce and loss to the school district. Thank you.
Adam Hansen. Adam. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Adam Hansen. I've had Coach Joe for going on 2 years, and I can definitely say that it has been the best 2 years that I've ever spent in school. He is the reason why I look forward to go to school. One of the main things that separates him from that, he is also, sorry. He's one of my biggest inspirations in my life, and he has definitely changed my life. One of the things that makes him different from every other teacher is that he refers to us as his babies or his kids. And by terminating him, you are doing nothing but taking away our father or our dad. I beg you, please, bring back Coach Joe, bring back our inspiration, bring back our role models. Thank you.
Calvin, it looks like Moment, excuse me, is it Calvin Moment? Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Calvin Moment. I'm here on behalf of Coach Joe. I don't know any of you. I've had the opportunity to meet Mr. Randall before in a meeting. And one of my suggestions would be if more attention can be paid to maybe investigating the politics in this county, because this county is very small. It's full of aunties, uncles, cousins, brothers, only 2 public high schools here in the county. Everybody knows one another, and the community has spoken about this great man, this great educator, this great teacher, this great coach. And this stuff right here, it just goes back. It goes back to a long time ago. And one of the main things is I heard this young gentleman right here, and I actually seen him at the mall a little bit earlier. But while I was at the mall with Coach Joe, his wife, his mom. I was at the mall with Miss Pryor and her mom, and we had a meeting. She does not want Coach Joe to be fired. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but she's not recommending that. She's requested a meeting, and she said that she was told that she was not able to have a meeting. Our meeting got very emotional. There's going to be some healing and bonding going on between these families. And not only that, he's going to have the opportunity to speak with Isaiah on this Friday. And so him and Isaiah are going to be all right, because as all these kids have spoken, some been in trouble, and a lot of the kids that Coach Joe has helped that have been in trouble, he's going to do the same thing for Isaiah, the same thing. And a man like this, we cannot get rid of. And it almost seemed like a movie type of moment to where, you know, the community come before the board and we iron this all out as a family. It was said that this is a family. You know, if we're about education, this man has helped so many people. Let's move forward from here. Let's find out what went wrong, because I know the families are going to find out what went wrong. Let's save Isaiah. Let's save Coach Joe too, because Coach Joe needs to be here. He needs to be here for these kids. He was there for my son. He's still there for my kids. And I love him. I love his family. I love what he stands for. And we will just be doing a huge disservice to this community, if this political firing goes forward. And Mr. Cooper said it best. How in the world can a principal tackle a student and put his hands around his neck to what seemed like Coach Joe need to be the principal? Thank you.
Jessica Butler. Jessica Butler. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Butler. It is said that a coach will impact more lives in a year than most can in a lifetime. Coach Joe has impacted the lives of so many here in Indian River County. Through his love of teaching, he's always teaching those life lessons on and off the field. I have been honored to have this man teach my 3 boys his life lessons for over 10 years. He's taught them the character of a man, being present and prepared, to be honest, to have love and compassion for others. He's made us look deep inside and see good that others might not see, giving a piece of himself to all he has come in contact with. I had a bunch of stories about my boys, but I have 3 minutes, how he has impacted them. My youngest son played football for Coach Joe. I have a few more things. It says, what makes a good educator? Here are a few reasons Coach Joe is respected like he is. He takes time to get to know his students. He always allows them to be independent thinkers. He treats them with respect and dignity. He makes them think. He understands students have good days and bads. He's truthful and honest. He makes students believe in their voice will be heard and will impact our community. He treats all students like they are important and always has an open door policy when they are in need. To the reason to his dismissal, I am a mother and I can speak to the character of Coach Joe all day long. And as a mother, I can speak about the character of my boys. As a school board, what character are you teaching our youth by these actions? How are you saving the adults of tomorrow? Sorry, I'm very passionate about this. If we teach them that their actions do not have consequences. This student had been allowed to walk the halls with nonviolent children. He has been made out to be the victim of his own crime. He is teaching other students on the fence that it is okay to disrespect, and this is not okay with me. I have raised my children to say please and thank you, yes sir, and to respect authority. And one single action, Sebastian River High School's principal the superintendent of schools has possibly ruined everything that us parents have worked for. You have the power to take a stand and teach our youth that manners, respect are needed to thrive in our community. You have the power to overturn an unjust termination and stand behind a devoted educator and show that Indian River County is a neighborhood for the future educators of tomorrow. Don't let the shameful injustice affect our future generations, for what teacher wants to know that they are helpless in their own classrooms? I hope that you will overturn this misuse of power by Todd Racine and reinstate Coach Joe. Let him return to his family and let him continue to be a positive role model for our youth. Michelangelo once said, "The greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but setting our aim too low and achieving our mark." Coach Joe has set the bar high for all of us. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Kelly Smith.
Hi, my name is Kelly Smith, and I don't have a pretty printed out paper to read to you, but I'm a mom of 5 girls, all girls. 2 have graduated from high school at Sebastian River High School, and I have 2 currently enrolled. So we've been around for a while. We've seen Coach Joe, the ins and outs, how he treats his students. It is a grave misjustice to remove him from the teaching position. He is not a good teacher, he's a great teacher. We can't get rid of great teachers. We have good teachers, but there's few that are extraordinary, and Coach Joe is extraordinary. It would be a crime to take him out of the classroom. I have a 9th and 10th grader. They want Coach Joe. Please, please reconsider your position. Coach Joe stood with our family and supported our family through a really hard time. And so I'm here, my children are here, my husband, our community, my neighbors, everyone I know backs Coach Joe. So please, please take to heart what we're saying here and the true character of Coach Joe and keep him at the school. Thank you.
That concludes the input. Thank you, everyone, for your orderly participation. Item G, approval to terminate instructional employee Joe Nathaniel. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In item G, I'm asking for approval to terminate one of our employees. This was an extremely tough decision. The supporting documents contain the charging letter and the rationale for my decision. Item G has 3 parts, and each part has to be voted on separately. In part number 1, I'm recommending termination of the employee. However, the employee has requested a hearing to contest the termination. During the time which will elapse between this date and the outcome of the hearing, I am recommending that the employee be suspended without pay. So this is the first part of the item that needs to be voted on, a recommendation for suspension without pay pending the outcome of the hearing. In part 2, I am asking the board to make the determination as to who will hear the requested appeal. The board can hear this matter themselves, or the board has the option of requesting that an administrative hearing officer be assigned by the Division of Administrative Hearings to oversee the hearing. So this is the second part of the item that needs to be addressed. Does the board wish to hear the matter themselves or ask the Division of Administrative Hearings to assign a hearing officer? In part 3, if the school board has voted in part 2 to hear the termination themselves, then a hearing date needs to be set. The hearing must be held within 60 days of the receipt of the employee's request for a hearing. That end date is March 4th, 2016. However, if the board decides in Part 2 to request the Division of Administrative Hearings assign a hearing officer, then that organization will schedule the hearing, and the board does not need to vote on item number 3. Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to request our attorney to discuss matters of motions and how that will be handled. Will it be 3 separate motions?
Yes, ma'am. Just to keep the record clear, if you would take action on the first recommendation of the superintendent, make your decision with that, and then the second 2 items will flow from there, and we can take each of them individually.
So the first item, the superintendent's recommendation, is to suspend the employee without pay pending the outcome of the requested hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move approval for discussion.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Ms. Jimenez.
Yes. Thank you to all of you who came to share your side of this sad story tonight. And this is obviously not an easy decision. I don't think it's an easy recommendation for the superintendent to make. However, as I was listening to all of you, parents, students, colleagues, talk about Coach Joe, I had such a hard time reconciling the video images that I saw of his behavior. And I think that it's worth it to read it for the record, because I heard people say that this was horrible for teachers because the board is sending teachers the message that if they risk themselves or if they step up, they are going to be punished. But the behavior in those videos is not a teacher stepping up in an appropriate manner. And that is why I believe that there needs to be a hearing, because the lawyers spoke that people were not allowed to share information. There are some things that are of concern that I think need to be followed up. But for the record, on November...
Excuse me, we were respectful to the audience. Please, this is a process. Please be respectful to someone who's speaking.
Thank you. On November 17, 2015, you followed a student into another teacher's classroom unnecessarily. You were in the face of a student as he was backing up and repeated, "Are you going to do something with your hands?" These behaviors were recorded by video. After that, it appears on the video that the student was speaking to you and had his hands in front of him. It appears the student may or may not have made contact with you, at which point you pushed the student so forcefully that he fell backwards. You began repeating loudly, "Don't you ever put your hands on me," and continued moving toward the student, physically pushing him backward. A physical altercation thereafter ensued between you and the student. After the student had been removed from the classroom, the student went to the front office to use the phone. You are shown on a second video following the student into the front office and physically preventing him from using the phone. This situation could have been avoided if you had not, 1, taunted the student with the comments, "Are you going to do something with your hands?" 2, continue to move toward the student in an aggressive manner, forcing him to step backwards, and 3, physically pushing and yelling at the student. Additionally, you did not need to follow the student and continue the physical confrontation in the front office. Your behavior violates school policy 3210, which requires that you shall make reasonable effort to protect the student from conditions harmful to learning and or to the student's mental and or physical health and or safety. And 2, you shall not intentionally expose a student to unnecessary embarrassment or disparagement. As the teacher in this situation, you were responsible to be the one in control of your own words and actions, and you were responsible to de-escalate the situation. Conversely, you escalated the situation both verbally and physically. Your actions were harmful to the student's physical and mental health, caused unnecessary embarrassment to the student, and disparaged the student. Now, that's what is in the record. I know that the majority of you have disagreed with that, but I ask you, does that student who was disrespectful and misbehaved not have inherent worth and dignity? Are we, excuse me, we listen to all of you, so please listen to us.
Excuse me, sir. Anyone who disrupts this meeting will be removed. That's a warning.
So are we saying that some students deserve respect, even the bad students? Isn't that what we're trying to say? That we respect all students? He was the adult. Now, after hearing all of you, I think that we need to have a conversation about this, but I do not believe that when a policy is violated, we can look the other way. What message are we sending to students? What message are we sending to teachers? That you can violate a policy and there are no consequences? I don't think that's the message we want to send, no matter how bad that student is. In this country, you are innocent until presumed guilty, adult or student. I think we have a termination recommendation unless we have just cause to overturn the superintendent's recommendation. We should have a hearing locally, the sooner the better, to get this done with, over and done with, and not send it out of our community. It's about local control. We should do it here. But I don't think we can say, oh, you violated the policy, you're an amazing person, and therefore we're going to make an exception. We can't do that. That is a lack of responsibility on this board. Then why do we have policies? If a nice person violates the policy, we look the other way. Think about that. I am willing to support the superintendent's recommendation.
May I please just thank you, Ms. Jimenez, and I want to remind, there is no further public input. Everyone's had their chance. It is now the board's time to discuss. I will then again tell you this is about respect. There will be no more. No hand raising, no talking, and if people are disruptive, they will be removed. And this is important that you allow and respect others as we respected the speakers. Did not interrupt. Thank you, Ms. Jimenez. Do you have anything further? No. Mr. Frost? Excuse me, Mr. McCain, you were the second?
I'll pass.
Thank you. Mr. Frost?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm probably, I think, the only one up here who's ever taught high school.
I taught high school.
You did teach high school? Okay. I actually had the opportunity to teach at the very same school and probably some of the same students that Coach Nathaniel has taught. And there have certainly been days where I felt like acting out and not being the adult in the room. I've heard a lot tonight, a lot of positive things about Coach Joe, and I can tell you when I taught there, I heard many of the same things. I don't know that anyone doubts that Coach Joe has worth, or that Coach Joe did great things with students, or that Coach Joe is a good family man, and he continues. It really encourages me that I hear that, the two parties, the parent of the student, quote, they're going to be all right, because that's an extremely important thing. However, as a teacher, I left the profession because I was punched in the back of the head breaking up a fight. And I realized that it probably wasn't the profession for me. So having a clear understanding of how to behave, and Ms. Jimenez probably said it best, this is a conversation that needs to continue. We need to have a clear understanding of how educators behave, so that they are respected, so that the student is respected. And that's another great point, that you may feel that this student is a bad kid, but you know what? Every child, as Pastor and Principal Hart said, they're students at Hope. It's our job to be the treasure hunters and looking for the positive in them. Now, we don't always do our best, and there are times when we fall short. And it seems like the important thing here is that we divorce the individual, Coach Joe, that many of you know, from the behavior. And what we should have a hearing on is the behavior, and whether the behavior was one that needs to be addressed. And it's also important to know that we're not technically terminating Mr. Nathaniel tonight. What we're voting on is whether or not he's going to be either reassigned or paid while we're waiting on the hearing. So I understand that seems very similar, but it's not the same thing. And that's it. We do have due process, and that's the purpose of this meeting tonight, is to move that forward.
Thank you. Mr. Susi.
Yes, I don't know this gentleman, but what I hear about what's going on in our schools, our kids are out of control. And I know what the rules are that the superintendent has to operate under, but I will not, and I told the superintendent early on I was going to support this issue, but I cannot. And I'll tell you why. If we don't put a stop to this kind of activity from our students, we might as well not be up here. I don't condone the actions of this person, but I don't have any idea what the student did to provoke that. And it almost sounds like a setup to me. When mysteriously they had videos of that end of the altercation where they just got Coach Joe. And again, I don't know the gentleman, but I wonder what kind of disciplinary action is going to happen to that student. Because if we let this continue like it's going here, again, we're out of control. And as far as I know what the school board rules say because I read them, but in those rules, I never saw what the penalty is for violating the rules. Now, maybe I missed it, but is the penalty listed in our school board rules for violation of those actions? That's a question to the
The
superintendent.
various levels of progressive discipline are in the contract with the teachers.
Okay, but as far as our school board rules go, we list all of the problems that are the issues, but I've never seen a statement that says if you put your hands on a student, you're going to be terminated. Is that in the contract or in the school board rules?
I wouldn't say that it's spelled out specifically like that.
Mr. Superintendent, this isn't an argument, by the way, but a very good point was brought up a minute ago about, I guess it's the principal up at that high school that put his hands on a student, and he was trying to do, in my way of thinking, this, and I've not seen the videos, by the way, he was trying to do the same things that this Coach Joe was trying to do. So I just feel like if we move beyond tonight, and I think Ms. Jimenez touched on it, if we have the wherewithal to move this issue forward, then we need to have the guts to make the decision at this board meeting about what happens to this gentleman, and I think there's another one on the agenda for tonight. But, and I just it doesn't make sense. Our kids are out of control, and we've got to get control of them. And unfortunately, Mr. Superintendent, it's your responsibility.
Yeah, just a couple of brief things. I just want to ask for one thing. Do we have the ability to, if this is going to go to a hearing, we don't know the ultimate outcome of that hearing. And it's not a whole lot of time, it's a very quick turnaround. Do we have the ability to still pay an employee while they're doing it?
Yes.
Hey, listen, you people are being extremely disrespectful. This is a board meeting. We're here to do the business meeting of the school district. Please be respectful. Please. That's all I'm asking. If you like something I say, keep it to yourself. If you like something Mr. Searcy says, nobody needs to hear you clapping, anything like that. We all understand that. Okay? Please. Mr. Gresta?
Yeah. Mr. McCain, yes, the school board certainly would have the ability to, you could approve the superintendent's recommendation to suspend without pay. You could change the motion that's already on the table, and it could be a suspension with pay. You could also determine that you would not grant the recommendation to suspend and request the superintendent place the individual in a position where he has been, I guess, recently.
Reassigned.
Yes, reassigned to a particular position that the superintendent.
I just want to know those options were on the table. I wasn't sure. A lot of times we're handcuffed and things like this.
Yes, sir.
This is, it kind of hits home to me. I did play football at Vero Beach High School. We had John Thames and Bill Wilson, people like that. I remember, Coach Thames always took the lunchroom duty so he could make extra money. And there was always a fight in the lunchroom. And he was the authority of the lunchroom, and sometimes it did get violent. Do I think Coach Joe stepped in a little bit? Yeah. I think he probably does too. I'm torn, though, with a kid who was acting out. I'm a little torn that do we need to, are we doing irreparable harm to our county, but yet still looking out for the welfare of our children? And those are the issues at play. Mr. Gresta, one more question.
Yes, sir.
On this item, what happens if you get a no vote right now? Is this item still on the table? We still have to take a definitive yes item? We have to take a vote on a yes?
Yes, the board needs to take some sort of action. So if the pending motion doesn't pass, then I always ask that perhaps another motion would pass, so that we have some action, some direction with regard to the first issue.
Okay, and really, Coach Joe deserves, and he's guaranteed his day to not in court, but for lack of a better term, and that will happen. I'm just afraid that if we suspend without pay at this point, we may lose a valuable employee, even if that hearing comes out in his favor. And so that would be my only thought.
I'd like to weigh in. Before all of you appeared, I received many calls, many letters. Joe Nathaniel's character is not a question here, outside of this incident. It seems that he's a fine person. He's inspired many students. I am not judging other board members. However, I did watch both tapes. For all of you who've said, I've seen the tape, it might have been a Facebook or a Vine 7-second, and you're shaking your head, but there are 2 tapes. Has anybody seen the second tape? And if you've seen the second tape, you can see clearly. There was a mother that said, we need to teach our children that actions, are we sending a message that actions do not have consequences? This is so sad because Indian River School District did not do this to Joe Nathaniel. Did not bring tonight to Joe Nathaniel. The student did not bring this to Joe Nathaniel. The student is accountable for his actions. That is separate. The teacher is accountable for his actions. And Joe Nathaniel brought himself here. In someone's words, if I did it, I would tell you. I would step up. Joe Nathaniel is responsible for bringing this here. And I will tell you, so I did my due diligence. There is a charging letter. It's paper. It's black and white. I have seen a lot of things. I have worked in law enforcement agencies. I've taken terrible, terrible, violent calls. But I cannot tell you how sick and how frightened and how in fear I was watching this tape. I totally will tell you that the student was not the aggressor. I will tell you, when a student is in an office making a phone call, no teacher has the right to come in and chase them and get physical and aggressive with them. That is not, no one has that right. And so for all of you who have spoken, who haven't seen the second tape, when it's not breaking up a fight, when it's not belly up to each other, when the person and the student is away from that teacher and the teacher seeks out that person and gets aggressive with them, that's not a message I want to send. That's not what I want to send. That's why this is so hard. Only Joe Nathaniel can answer what made him feel like that. I just don't understand. I don't understand. And his character is not in question. He's done some fine things. You know, how many times have we seen somebody who in the public who's a wonderful person, who donates, who does wonderful things for the community, and they make bad choices? I would tonight fully support the motion that's on the table to suspend without pay, and when we get to I would fully support, because of the discussions of politics, that we take this to an outside DOA. But since the motion is on the table, we've all spoken. Is there any further?
Did you say that the motion is to take this outside?
No, the motion on the table is to suspend without pay. As we proceed, we'll get to how that is taken, but as I said, I have seen both tapes. It is disturbing, and I think that there is, that this needs to be, I support the hearing, the recommendation for the hearing, but I would not support paying somebody with what I saw. There is a fairness, and that somebody should be, they made that notice, that presented a notice that requesting a hearing. So, quiet, please.
Excuse me.
Is all those, anyone have any further? Mr. Searcy.
At the very worst, I'm not going to support the motion, but at the very worst, could offer up an amendment that if the suspension gets the majority vote, that it be with pay.
Unless Ms. Amendment, I mean, we could take a vote, and if, as Ms. DeAgresta said, there's a motion on the table. So I'll call for the vote, and...
So if that fails, then we can have an amended motion.
And if that fails, we can amend it.
Okay.
So the motion on the table is to suspend...
We can always come back to this one.
To support the superintendent's recommendation to suspend without pay Joe Nathaniel. Call for, all those in favor?
Roll call.
No, regular vote. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Nay.
Motion does not. I'll entertain a second motion.
Now you make your motion.
I'll entertain a second
and
motion.
then we discuss.
Okay, I'll make a motion, the suspension is with pay.
No
We need an
reassignment?
we have to take action
Okay,
on this
gotcha.
piece.
Thank you. Yep.
We have to.
Do I have a second?
Second for discussion.
Mr. McCain?
I've already spoken.
Mr. Frost?
I'd like to hear what the other board members have to say.
I need clarification on what in the world it is we're doing.
Okay.
We just
Miss,
voted the
let me say,
recommendation down.
with pay. The alternative is with...
With no pay.
With no, I mean, excuse me.
We said no to that.
Okay.
Now the
Motion
recommendation is
failed
suspension
without pay. There is a motion on the table to suspend the teacher with pay. I have a motion by Mr. McCain and a second by Mr. Frost. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay. What was the vote?
Let me take this. All those,
Right, suspend with pay.
all those opposed, all those in favor of suspending with pay?
Aye.
And then it's.
Isn't that what you wanted, Mr. Searcy? Do you not understand the
I said, if
motion?
you're going to go that far, at least give the man pay while we're waiting.
That's the motion on the table,
But
sir.
I'm still not going to support terminating or putting the guy
It's
on
not a
leave. I'm sorry?
Oh, my Lord. All those in favor of suspension with pay? Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries, teacher suspended with pay, 3-2. Item number excuse me.
Part 2.
Part 2, excuse me. Superintendent also requests that the board determine who will hear the matter, either the school board or the administrative hearing officer assigned by the Division of Administrative Hearings.
I'd like to make a motion that the hearing is referred to the Division Administrative Hearings.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. McCain?
Yeah, real quick. And I know there's going to be some talk, and we've gone through this before, unfortunately. This is never an easy process. This is the worst part about being a school board member. We had a situation a couple years ago, same kind of deal. And I said at the time, before we did it, that I really favored it going to the Division of Administrative Hearings. I was on the wrong side of that. It ended up back with us. During that time, we sat here, and I thought it was just such a it was such a shame that we had done that, and it was so unfair to that employee we had done that, because we were sitting here, and you had somebody's job being determined by 5 people who are no more, who the only qualification they had to is that sometime or another they had more signs in people's yards. When we could have put that to a professional who actually looks at evidence, who is absolutely, that's what they do. They're trained in that. And I thought it was at the end of that last one that happened, it was clear the way the vote was going. And I said to the man then, I said, I'm sorry that you had to sit here, because it should have gone to a professional, in a professional arena. So, and I still feel the same way with this.
Thank you, Mr. Frost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Particularly tonight, we heard some things about politics and things along those lines. So I think that, and that's the reason I seconded this motion, was because there is that specter of concern with a local decision that is not made by a completely impartial DOA professional who hears these, or Department of Education professional who hears these sorts of things. And that's the reason I supported this motion.
Thank you. Any further? Ms. Jimenez?
Yeah, I'm actually torn about this because, you know, the DOA is not always impartial. And I believe that this is a local control issue. This is our employee and it's our community. But on the other hand, I see how divisive this is. And I think given the tenor of the situation here today, I don't think it's in the best interest of this school district to try to hold any kind of hearing here, because it would be more divisive and troubling than anything else. And so my inclination is always to own it locally. It's our community, it's our teacher. But I see how divisive this is, and I don't want to put our community through that. So I will be voting to have the DOA take care of that.
Mr. Susie?
We tend to blame everything on Tallahassee. And if we give them the opportunity to come down and handle this decision, we're just trying to get it off of our plates. And if we have the guts to run for school board and take the salary that we're paid, we need to be able to make that decision. We got to face all these people, no matter how it happens. So I'm not going to support the motion to have somebody from Tallahassee come in and tell us what to do. And now, they're going to have, the gentleman's going to have good legal counsel, and I'm sure we are going to have good legal counsel. And I've never been through this kind of a hearing, but I can tell you that we're the ones that are responsible. We're the elected school board. We need to make that decision here. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Hang on. Please. No. I will support going the DOA. I agree with Mr. Searcy. If we are the ones who are elected, we should be the ones who look at all the evidence, and before tonight should have looked at every stick of evidence. And I've heard from my peers that some have not. So I think that Mr. Nathaniel would be receiving fair, unbiased treatment by having an outside person or entity review this. I feel that has been proven tonight, that somebody will do a more thorough job. So I will be supporting the motion for the outside.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt your conversation, but I wanted to add one piece of information. If the motion passes to send the matter up to the Division of Administrative Hearings to be handled, please know that that agency enters a recommended order. That recommended order then comes back to the school board for final action. While there are some legal theories that we will discuss at that time that prohibit you from changing everything in that recommendation, you do have some discretion to change some of the recommendations if you feel appropriate based on that record that's created. So this matter, even if it's sent to the outside agency, will eventually make its way back to you for the entry of a final order. I just want you to, in case you weren't remembering that from previous incidents, and I know, Mr. Searcy, you were not here with us at that time, just that you have that additional look at this once that evidentiary hearing is completed.
And I think that would give clarity to all parties, no matter what your focus or opinion is on this, that if an outside entity comes back with an opinion, at least either people who have opinion one way or another will have clarity on how an outside person without emotional attachment and or policies will have clarity on what that recommendation is, and then it would return to the board. And I think that's a step that we should add if it's going to come back to the board anyway. I think it's a step that we should add, so I do feel we should support that, Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to very quickly follow up because I have a note here that one of our speakers said they wanted to get to what went wrong. I agree. And I think that Mr. Nathaniel deserves that, and he deserves it from a fair party outside of the organization here. And that'll give us time to review the materials and get on the YouTubes and do all those things. And hopefully we'll be able to make a better determination once we've had an outside party weigh in without any bias and any of what has been presented as politics.
I'll call the question. All those
I
in...
have one more question.
Yes, sir.
How long does this process take, and when will we begin employing, or whatever we do, the folks from Tallahassee?
The statute requires that I provide notice to the Division of Administrative Hearings within 10 days of your decision to refer a matter to them. So within this week, I will send the required letter to advise that the case will be referred to them. Once the case is referred to an administrative law judge, that judge has 60 days to hear the matter. Of course, if the parties aren't ready within those 60 days, the parties can ask for additional time, but the statute says the hearing is supposed to occur within 60 days.
I'll call the question. Sir?
I'm good.
All those in favor of the motion to use the DOA for the hearing within 60 days?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
4-1, Ms. Stang.
You do not need to do part 3.
Moving to item H, before we do, I want this for the record. The school board members received from item H from Brian Christoforski a letter, and I would like to please give this to Ms. Stang, if you can pass that through. We were all in receipt of the letter. If you could, please, those that are leaving, please be respectful and hold your comments till outside. Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
We have another teacher's item. Please be respectful to that person as well.
Madam Chairman. Excuse me. Could you make the announcement that we have these board meetings twice a week and
Yeah,
twice a
come on
month,
back.
and we would love to have these folks come back.
Then you'd be really familiar with the parliamentary procedure, too.
Thank you very
Some of
much
us
for
will
not
be.
doing that.
I'd like to move to item H, approval to terminate instructional employee Brian Christoforski. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In item H, I'm asking for approval to terminate one of our employees. This also was a very tough decision. The supporting documents contain the charging letter and the rationale for my decision. As with item G, item H has 3 parts, and each part has to be voted on separately. In part number 1, I'm recommending termination of the employee. However, the employee has requested a hearing to contest the termination. During the time which will elapse between this date and the outcome of the hearing, I am recommending that the employee be suspended without pay. So this is the first part of the item that needs to be voted on, a recommendation for suspension without pay pending the outcome of the hearing. In part 2, I'm asking the board to make the determination as to who will hear the requested appeal. The board can hear this matter themselves, or the board has the option of requesting that an administrative hearing officer assigned by the Division of Administrative Hearings oversee the hearing. So that's the second part of the item that needs to be addressed. In part number 3, the school board, if the school board has voted in part number 2 to hear the termination, then a hearing date needs to be set, must be held within 60 days of the receipt of the employee's request for a hearing. That end date is March 6th, 2016.
Thank you, Dr. Rendell. Board members, this is the exact same process as the item before this. The first item is the superintendent recommends to suspend the employee without pay pending the outcome of the requested hearing. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Ms. Jimenez?
Yeah, we received a letter from the teacher, and I guess my first, as we get ready to have this conversation, we had a previous person and the room was full, and we suspended them with pay. And now we have a situation of a person whose letter also asks us to talk to his colleagues, and he gives examples of things he has done to support students. But he is not here with advocates to persuade the board and touch our hearts so that we can, because he's also, an individual with mortgage and family and so on. So I think it's ironic, and I just say that for reflection because, I think is that going to be our way of working? So that's number 1. So I would like to see this person suspended with pay. And then number 2, the letter alleges that due process was not followed. And I think it's important, Dr. Rendell, to clarify for the board what your assessment is of that allegation.
I did review the letter from Mr. Christoforski. I did talk with Dr. Fritz and review the actions that were taken. I am confident that he was given his due process in these stages, given the actions that we took so far. The hearing, of course, is another step in that due process. Dr. Fritz, do you have anything to offer?
I don't. If you do have questions, you're aware that I'm sure. We do have District Counsel Beth Cope here present. She obviously is assisting with this case, and if you do have specific questions about the definition of due process, or at least her assessment on behalf of the district, she would be glad to answer that on our behalf.
Ms. Jimenez?
Yeah, and as a follow-up, he is not contesting the termination. What he says in the letter, the purpose of this letter is not to argue the request for termination. That is why I have asked for a hearing, but to deny the recommendation of suspension without pay. I am unable to appear in person for the January 12th meeting because I had surgery and so on and so forth. So, you know, we might want to consider that, and I'd be happy to take back my motion.
Anyone else? Mr. Searcy?
We just approved an issue suspending an employee with pay, and I think we must have equal rights. So I won't support the motion if we suspend him without pay. I will support the motion if we suspend him with pay, because apparently in the letter, he is not denying that he should be terminated. Based on what I understand, and I may be wrong.
There are two separate communications. He did issue a letter saying that he wants a hearing so he's contesting the termination by requesting hearing. The second communication is where he is asking not to be suspended without pay during the time that we conduct the hearing. Two separate communications.
And the motion is now to suspend him without pay.
Correct.
Okay, that's the one I can't support.
Okay. Let me let everybody speak, and then I'll ask if you want to. Mr. McCain?
All right.
Mr. Frost?
Thank you. Some of you may have noticed I was a little bewildered because I was looking for all the citizen inputs, and I thought maybe Chair Simchek had gone ahead without citizen input, but there were no requests to speak on this matter? That, not
There's
even
someone came late. They weren't
teachers'
able
union?
to make
Okay.
that request.
That is interesting. So, to be clear, while the sentence, if taken out of context, says he's not disputing the termination, he's not writing to dispute the termination. He's writing to ask that we not stop payment of his salary while we figure out whether or not he should be terminated. He is, in fact, to my understanding, that's why he requested the hearing. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing all this terrible business in public here. Just so other board members are clear on that matter moving forward, that he is in fact disputing his termination, and this is the process of whether or not we are authorizing suspension without pay during that period.
And I would like to say that I would agree with Ms. Jimenez that it's sad that the gentleman, although someone came late, that there is when we talk about politics and public sentiment, many people had not seen videos and things like that, and there's no public input here. But I think it would only be fair I would support suspending with pay pending the hearing. Being that the hearings are within 60 days, I would support this as well if you would like to amend your motion.
I would.
Let the record show. Would you like to?
Amend the second,
So we have an amended motion to suspend this teacher with pay, seconded by Mr. McCain. Any further? Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That will be 5-0. Ms. Stang, Part 2 would be a recommendation on who is to hear, where the hearing will take place, whether internally or with the DOA. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we refer it to the DOA.
I'll second for discussion.
I have a motion by Mr. McCain, a second by Mr. Frost. Mr. McCain.
And nothing's changed since the first time. I thought it was the right thing to do. Every time this has come up, I think it's the right thing to do now. And I did, Suzanne, or Mr. Gresta actually pointed out that, those are recommendations. They do come back to us anyway, but we get it in a professional setting with people who really know what they're doing, and to flesh out all of the facts that are pertinent to this. So that's why I've always favored doing that way.
Mr. Frost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The sentence that keeps sticking in my mind, or the phrase rather, is Mr. Searcy said equal treatment, and I think that that's what's in order here.
Thank you. Any further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay? No? Ms. Stang, 5-0. I voted for, excuse me, to clarify.
No need for Part 3.
We don't
Very
need
good.
Part 3.
Right.
So we are moving
Back to paying bills.
to item I, approval of the revised 2015-2016 professional technical salary schedules and to implement salary adjustments based on findings of market salary study. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've been working for quite some time to make sure that our salaries
Excuse me,
are-
Dr. Rendell, I am so sorry. I have to just stop.
Right.
I do have a very patient public input, Miss Millie Chapman. I so apologize. If you would please approach, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and I apologize.
Just need all you guys to settle down, don't be screaming in here. No. My name's Millie Chapman, I'm student sports specialist at Sebastian High School. This is Colleen Davenport. She's also a student sports specialist at the Osceola Magnet School. Our team is very concerned about the decision regarding the proposed salary changes for student sports specialists. We feel it's based on an inaccurate job description. The job description on file is 10 years old. References a required certification that no longer exists, and it does not at all reflect the daily work of a student sports specialist. Believe it or not, we're crisis interventionists. One of the most glaring omissions in the job description is the lack of referencing that student support specialists engage with students every day. We also consult with teachers, parents, administrators, community agencies, and others on behalf of students. In addition to holding a bachelor's degree and more often a master's and specialist degrees in mental health fields, all student support specialists also hold and maintain a national board certification for behavior analysis, or they are board certified assistant behavior analysts. The combination of the mental health degree and behavior analysis certification makes the student support specialist the preferred professional to provide prevention, intervention services for students. Those are the students requiring Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports, as well as Tier 3 supports, developing, providing services and supports to those students with significant social, emotional, and/or behavioral difficulties. The student support specialists work to reduce suspensions and prevent kids going out on that. Interventions also provided by us prevent students with behavior issues from interfering with their academic performance, thus sometimes preventing them from requiring exceptional student education. Student support specialists are also members of the leadership team. At the elementary level, when the principal and assistant principal are off campus, the student support specialist many times is the one that assumes the leadership responsibility. Some of you on the board will recall a few years ago when the 3 magnet schools were to lose a member of their leadership team due to budget cuts. The 3 magnet schools, the principals decided to keep their student sports specialist instead of their assistant principal. This choice speaks to the value that the schools put into our positions. We perform many other functions, including co-chairing the multidisciplinary team, MTSS problem solving, developing monitoring 504 plans. Is that my time?
Now,
Okay. In closing, the current salary schedule allows a student support specialist to increase their salary by $4,000 in the school, in the course of their career. Please consider updating our job description and increasing our category. Hold the applause, please.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Have a good night. Thank you for your time.
So I'll return to, thank you. And thank you for your patience. I'll return to item I, the revised professional technical salary schedules.
Thank you,
Dr.
Madam
Rendell.
Chair. As I was discussing earlier, we have worked for some time to try to bring different employee groups to market salaries to make sure that we're competitive in the market for like positions. Dr. Fritz is going to take a few minutes to explain how that process worked and where we came to the salary schedules that we have and what avenues we have for any appeals or anything like that. Dr. Fritz.
Thank you, Dr. Rendell, Madam Chair, members of the board. Before you tonight is a proposed revised professional technical salary schedule. As the board is aware, we have for some employee groups for quite some time, their salaries have been frozen. Also, we are aware that existing salaries in many cases, especially for the professional technical group, have become out of sync with the competitive market. New employees also who come to the district bringing experience have often had the ability to leapfrog existing employees who were frozen, and so there's some salary disparity there. The school board in 2014-15, so in the last school year, established a superintendent goal to review and recommend an updated salary system for this group, and we're bringing that before you this evening. A professional consultant company was engaged to conduct a salary analysis for market competitiveness. This analysis was conducted using a proprietary database sourced through Connexa and Towers Watson and other generally accepted sources. The analysis was based on public sector jobs in the mid-Florida region of similar responsibility and of similar sized organizations. If you recall, we did do a board workshop on this a few months ago. The system was also designed to provide some flexibility and range to reward increasing skills and experience. The new salary structure before you tonight will increase the salaries for a number of employees. For those employees, the changes in salary upon board approval will be implemented with changes in pay by the end of January, retroactive to the start of the 15-16 contract year. For employees whose salaries remain the same or actually are recommended for a decrease, their salary will be frozen until such time as the salary schedule catches up with the incumbent salary. So based on approval tonight, nobody will have a reduction in pay. That being said, you are also aware that item K tonight, which will come later in the meeting, will grant the employees who are frozen a one-time $894 bonus. In the future, depending on budget and recommendations of staff, the approval by the school board, additional bonuses could be offered or not at the discretion of the school board. Approval would authorize the new salaries, but would also allow for the necessary adjustments to job descriptions. As with any significant change in a salary system, we will discover some anomalies as we move forward. One such example that was raised late last week had to do with the school psychologists. We do see some competitive challenges with tonight's recommended salary structure for that group, and as you're aware tonight, there was another group that brought forth some challenges. Rather than delay the process for all of the employees, we recommend approval, but we do assure the school board that this matter will be given thorough analysis and an adjustment will be recommended to the school board at a future date. And as I mentioned, I just learned of the student support specialist issue this evening, and we certainly will include that with the psychologists. The social workers also raised an issue this morning, so we'll look at them as well. As we move forward, we will inform employees of their new salary placement assignments. If they wish to provide information or documentation of essentially similar experience that we had missed, this will be granted. Also, if for any other set of employees they would like us to review the market situation for their positions or the accuracy of their job descriptions, we will do that as well and provide future recommendations to the school board for consideration. The cost of the recommended salary schedule and pay adjustments is estimated to be about $325,000, which is within the amount that was in the budget approved by the school board. So with that, we're glad to address any questions, and the superintendent does recommend approval.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Mr. McCain. Discussion, Mr. Frost?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very, very brief. Sometimes consultants get it wrong. Sometimes they don't know the correct category, so I'm encouraged to hear that that will be reviewed, and that and thank you for coming and speaking on behalf of the 15 folks who signed this letter. Again, as a teacher, I know the important role, and as a parent, more importantly, I know the important role of student support specialists. As Dr. Fritz said, we have to approve this to make it right, because we had employees that were red circled, and you didn't get to see the whole workshop. He just encapsulated about 3 hours of presentation of there are probably hundreds of hours of work on their behalf, and it's time now that things are thawing up a little bit to make things right, so that we don't have people being hired who are being paid more than their boss, essentially. So this is an opportunity to make that right.
Mr. McCain?
No, I can't add anything, although some of y'all need to work on your handwriting. We need to find a kindergarten teacher.
We still teach penmanship.
Maybe help you.
Ms. Jimenez.
Yeah, I'm glad that people have been speaking up. I just would feel more comfortable if there were some kind of a timeline to get back to the board in terms of at least the psychologists, the student support specialists, and the social workers who have spoken up. And I wonder how many other people, if they knew they could speak up, would be here. I find it interesting, and this has always been my pet peeve, that when I look at this, athletic directors get way much more than school psychologists, social workers, and support specialists that work every day with our students. There's got to be something wrong in a system that has that kind of discrepancy. I do have a question. The consumer price index that the consultant used, was it the Mid-Florida region or was it the Southeast Central region?
I may be misunderstanding the question. Consumer price index was not used.
The information, I'm sorry, the information
Mid-Florida was the comparison.
Is River County a part of Mid-Florida?
Yes, based on this analysis, the zone is considered Mid-Florida.
So it's not part of the Southeast Central region?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Searcy?
Yes, I have a couple questions. I don't quite understand why we, number one, I think if we have so many discrepancies in the salary thing now, I think we need to postpone this thing. Because obviously, what I'm hearing is the raises are going to be retroactive to the beginning of the school year, which I don't agree with. We're approving it now. It ought to be from today forward. But I don't quite understand. I just, if the I's aren't dotted and the T's aren't crossed, why are you bringing it to us tonight, Mr. Superintendent?
The job analysis takes a long time to prepare, and we've engaged with the consultant over a period of months, and we feel like that the data was, accurate when we presented it. And as we've learned, there are some discrepancies. We'll address those discrepancies to make sure that we're paying our employees the appropriate amount.
I would still suggest that it not be approved tonight because it isn't finalized. We might as well just do it one time instead of coming back with amendments and all that. I know you've done an awful lot of work on it, but we need to do things right. Get all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And what I'm hearing from the doc over there is maybe we don't quite know all of the details of this thing.
And I'm recommending for approval because the majority of the folks, if not all of the folks, everything is accurate. And the ones, again, we'll take a look at the cases that have been brought up tonight and yesterday and make sure that those employee groups are being compensated fairly.
I'd like.
I just have one quick question. This is budgeted, right?
Yes, sir.
This is beyond budget.
I thought it was in the narrative, but
I
yes,
just wanna-
this was within.
I like to mention things for people
Yes, sir,
who
this was in the
don't have
budget
this in
for
front of
this
them.
year.
I'd like to weigh in. I first want to say that it's not only this item, but the next two that follow. What happens in government, and it was the word, but I want to clearly restate again the word leapfrogging. There's nothing that's worse in morale than to have leapfrogging and people come in from other districts and are paid over, and to come in and leapfrog. It's when you have so many employees, and it's been done for so long, and then when you even have the people who are in HR in intake, processing the people who are leapfrogging, it's horrible. And that there was an effort by this board to have studies and a lot of work by staff and consultants, and it is on paper. We have, and so it's very flat. This is, in fact, I was sure that we would hear a lot from people who, which we did not hear. It was more of the cap, the ceiling. And that was, I was surprised tonight that the complaint was not, I understand, we haven't had a raise, or a lot of people are coming in, and they're not going to have a raise. They're not going to lose any pay by this. but they're going to be in hover mode until catch up and then move forward. So we're going to solve leapfrogging. However, caps may be disputed, job descriptions may be disputed, and I don't think that we're on the vast net went out and we cleaned up a lot. I have had the question to our superintendent that this is not, that those groups that have come forward, I think you said it best, and I will follow up, that there is still open discussion and that the fine tuning comes back to the board. I trust our superintendent will do that follow-up work. But for the majorities who will benefit this, either by the leapfrogging or standardizing our pay, because every time we delay, a new process comes into HR and may leapfrog, and it is terrible for morale. So I would like to take action on this night, this night with this, and then I would support the superintendent's recommendation with a, perhaps at our next discussion meeting, which is a month from now, this can be put on Ms. Stang as a follow-up as to how this discussions have gone. So I will support the superintendent's motion.
Madam Chair, if I may, in addressing the question that you asked and Ms. Jimenez asked, our intent would be to bring this by the first meeting in February back to the board with a recommendation, if that pleases the board.
That's even better. Thank you. Mr. Frost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Searcy makes a good point, and it's something that sort of stuck in my craw a little bit recently, is we always see these, and I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear it from Dr. Rendell or whomever he appoints here. But we always get these funding issues that are retroactive to the beginning of the calendar year, and that is just bad management. No offense, in the business world, you have a budget, and then you stick to it, and then there's a variance from that budget. You either have more money than you started with for that item, or you have less money than you need for that item, and you have to make decisions. You know, we don't get new flags, or we don't get a podium, or whatever. So what is driving the suggestion for these groups of employees to be paid retroactively? Because that is a big difference in the amount of money that this district spends. Will you help me understand that, Dr. Rendell?
I'll do my best. One of the things to understand is that some of these measures that we've taken tonight or we're taking recently have to do with directives that were given for this school year, for this calendar year, for this employee year, to bring salaries up to date for this school year. And so when we do that, when we're working on making sure that we do that for this school year, that's the entire school year. So when we put the salary package together or whatever, that's retroactive to the beginning of the year because that's the employee's pay for the school year. Same thing when we were talking about negotiating contracts. If we're past due on that employee group's contract, then when we settle on whatever increase in pay or compensation, it's going to be for the school year, the employee year that we're in, the contract year that we're in. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's practice here in the past. It's practice in most of the organizations that do this kind of work. It would probably be a sea change in how we have to address these different. So would the difference be made up in the last 6 months of paychecks, and then would the salary then be reduced for the following year? I'm not sure if I'm explaining that right. Dr. Fritz, you and I both have had long conversations about this. Perhaps you can explain it better than I can.
I will never try to explain anything better than you, Dr. Rendell. I think there are several different options. The recommendation is that it be retroactive to the start of the school year. A different option, which I think I heard Mr. Searcy speak to, was don't go retroactive, don't try to pay out the contract in the remainder of the year, but just start now with what the new biweekly paycheck should be and pay that from this point forward. A third option, which I think I heard Dr. Rendell explain, was if a person lost, let's say, $10,000, we would make that up over the remaining checks, which at the end of the year, when they go to resume their appropriate salary next year and they're no longer doing makeup, it would drop. And so I think we're really talking about three different, options here. But the one that's being recommended is retroactive pay, similar to what our unionized employees typically receive. These are non-unionized employees. They don't have that type of advocacy. There often is advocacy at the bargaining table, which we agree to, for retroactive pay and retroactive changes to benefits, which this group has already experienced. Their benefits changed back in July.
So, if I may sum up.
Sure.
Thank you. So it seems as though one of the reasons that it comes before the board recommended in this manner is because they are one-year contract employees. Is that correct, for the most part?
That's correct.
And when we negotiate with our teachers and the CWA members, we typically negotiate back to the beginning of the fiscal year when we prepared the budget to possibly do these sorts of things. So it's contemplated in the budget, and it provides parity for other employee groups, if you will.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And just to just affirm that's because it's in the budget, because also the study and the amount of time, there was calculations on how to do this, and then by the time it goes before us with workshops and actually, if I got this right, implementation, it's just ends up, as we are in bargaining sessions right now, past date,
Right.
but not through their fault. Mr. Searcy.
It's quite interesting to me that here we are 6-7 months into the year, and this $325,000 was already pegged in the budget that you guys put together last year for the current year. How did you just pull that figure out of the air and know that it was going to be $325,000 for this group? And number two, before we answer that, am I understanding right that all of these employees have an annual contract? I thought our employees were employed at will, or whatever they call that. They all have an annual contract, or no?
Yeah, so I think I heard you ask two questions. I'll answer the second question first. They do have an annual contract. So their contract has a duration from July 1st through June 30th. So this group
Every
has
employee
that.
that we have is on a contract? Is that?
We have some types of employees, for example, substitute teachers and things like that don't, but yes, our teaching employees, our instructional employees that are represented by our CEA have a year-long contract. Our CWA employees, they do have an annual contract. However, with that particular group, there's a probationary period that's involved in that, and their contract doesn't automatically renew. And then with our professional, technical, and administrative employees, they also have an annual contract. To go back to your first question about the number, we did not pull the number $325,000 out of the air. We actually pulled the number $400,000 based on estimates. You're aware we've been working on this process for quite some time. This issue was workshopped back early in the fall with the school board. If you remember at that point in time, we showed you a draft of this plan. That number came from analysis based on the initial drafts as we were initially reviewing them. Obviously, they've had quite a bit of refinement since that point in time, but the estimate, we're under the estimate at this point in time.
So you saved us $75,000, is that what you said?
I won't say that I saved $75,000. The cost of this as it is moving forward is $75,000 less than was estimated. As Mr. Morrison often does, we estimate expenditures on the high side and try to come in low. We estimate revenues on the low side and hope we come in above that. Hopefully I described that correctly, Mr. Morrison.
No comment.
He's really good at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's the theory of conservatism.
Yes.
Fiscal
Financial conservatism is fiscal conservatism.
Along that vein, I know we've had sort of the detailed discussion here, but the meta discussion should happen. And I've had conversations with Dr. Rendell that, this next year, I know we have contracts with our teachers, so we're going to put them first and take care of them, but we need to look at how we spend money other ways and perhaps staying within the rollback rate. That's just a thought.
That being said, all those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, Ms. Stang, 5-0. Item J is similar to the one before it, approval of salary adjustments for confidential managerial employees and non-school administrators. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, item J is basically increased compensation for this year for this employee group, falling in line with increased compensation that we've given to other employee groups throughout the year. About 1.93% is what we've been able to give to other employee groups. So item J is an adjustment to the salary schedule for confidential managerial employees and non-school administrators. The new schedule includes a 1.93% wage increase retroactive to the start of the 15-16 school year. Cost of this adjustment was included within the board-approved budget, and I recommend approval.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. McCain. Second?
Second.
Mr. McCain?
No, thank you.
Mr. Frost?
No, ma'am.
Any further? Mr. Searcy?
This last sentence in here, in this blurb, interests me. The adjustment shall be applicable to confidential managerial and non-school administrative employees, individuals employed by the school board on the date the board approved. Is this retroactive too?
Yes, sir.
Then that's
Well,
right.
then why, if somebody left the employee of our school district, I think that we ought to pay them. If the raise is retroactive, they should get the benefit of whatever raise is provided if they were employed at the beginning of the contract year. Just my thought. I don't know how you do that, but, I mean, we have a personnel guy that could tell us who all was employed at that time, and
Including terminated?
if the salary, that, I mean, the adjustments are gonna be applicable to the beginning of the contract year, if a person that was terminated 3 months into the contract and they were entitled to a raise, they should get it.
For the record, I'm not in favor of that. Any other board members?
I'm confused.
If I may, I can,
I think I know what Mr. Searcy is asking, but I'll let Dr. Fritz take a stab at it first.
yeah, thank you, Dr. Rendell. Excuse me. We have had challenges in the past when that type of issue has come up, and we have done retroactive pay with regards to specifically retirees. The FRS charges us a additional penalty if we have closed out the contract, issued terminal pay, and reported them as a retiree, and then we later come back and issue them more pay. And so that's become a complex issue. So that is the reason for the recommendation of having them need to be employed date certain, so that we don't run into a problem with additional FRS penalties, which can be significant. That approach wouldn't necessarily be a problem for a employee who resigned. And I do think we would question a terminated employee that was terminated for cause receiving that as well. So we're not recommending that it be applicable to anybody other than those who are employed today. For this particular group, we don't have a lot of turnover, so there probably are very few people that this would affect.
Thank you. And I was actually here when we had those issues with FRS. When FRS, you have a date certain on retirement, and when you change the, and salaries are submitted, and when you change that as the employer, you incur fines. So that's part of the reason. Yes, Mr. Susi?
Would that be a real good reason then not to make these increases retroactive?
Yep.
So
That's
we
what I
don't
was
get-
confused.
that could be a reason,
He was 3
yes.
steps ahead.
So that we don't get involved with FRS. We don't want to mess up anybody's retirement, but maybe these adjustments should not be retroactive to the first of the year, or the first of the contract year. That's my thought.
We can work toward that in the future.
I support that.
Mrs. Jimenez, I apologize.
Well, you know, this issue about, I'm so glad you asked that question about the retroactive, but I think that the equity piece is really important, because the non-bargaining employees are always at a disadvantage. I remember when we did all the cuts, who did we cut? We cut all the non-bargaining because they had no voice. And at that point, I remember I said, those guys should unionize,
Oh, boy.
because they're always going to take the hit, because, you know, we can't give them the hit. So I think this is an important conversation, but I think we need to be mindful about the equity around that. And in terms of equity, I have a question about how, and I think the answer is probably that we are going to review the confidential managerial the way we did this group, because when you look at the salary we approved for professional technical, we divided it into entry, experienced, and expert. And there's you can be at experienced for a long time before you go to expert or whatever. So there's not going to be a guaranteed increase unless the board can afford it, but with the confidential managerial, they're still on a step type of schedule. So they can be moving. So are we gonna move to having everyone be into this like entry, experienced, expert, or is every group going to have a different setup?
So I'll try to address your question. If I missed the mark, please tell me. For one, the confidential managerial group, they have also been frozen for quite some time, and they've not been moving on steps. In fact, they were the first group not to get step because we didn't have to negotiate that with that group. That just happened as a cost-saving measure back when things were difficult financially. As far as the way that salary structure might look as it evolves, we honestly don't know yet. I just this week saw the first, maybe it was Friday, recently saw a first blush look at how the market comparison looks, but we haven't gotten to the stage where we actually identify a salary schedule structure for that particular group. So we just haven't gotten that far in the process of determining either market comparisons or what would be fair for that group of employees.
And when you do your market comparisons, are you getting a good spread of profit, for-profit, and nonprofit? Because nonprofit tends to pay even less for those types of positions.
For the analysis for the upcoming year is exclusively school employees. Obviously, that we're looking at confidential managerial as well as non-school administrators in that particular analysis. There really are no non-school administrators in other organizations other than schools that would be comparable. For confidential managerial, actually that is a group that is not too difficult to compare. A superintendent secretary here is a superintendent secretary somewhere else in a like-sized district, for example. So that's a pretty easy group to do an analysis on. So we are looking specifically at schools for that group.
I have a motion on the table for removal to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0 Mustang. Item K, approval of a salary adjustment for certain professional technical employees. Dr. Rendell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item K is actually related to item I. It's the same employee group. Dr. Fritz will explain that in some of those cases where the person is red circled in the new salary structure, they would not receive any increase in compensation this year. And as we have tried to offer every one of our employee groups an increase in compensation this year, this is the way we can address those red circled, so to speak, employees who are not seeing an increase at all without item K. Dr. Fritz?
Yes, I think that encapsulates it. The recommendation is a $894 one-time bonus to occur by the end of January for those individuals. There are some professional technical employees who received a small increase, less than $894. So by approving this, those individuals will get the difference between $894 and what their salary increase was. The cost of this proposal is written in your background.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Frost.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. McCain. Mr. Frost.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I love that this is a bonus and not too much salary increase because it's a heck of a lot easier to budget for and to be prepared should the bottom fall out of whatever market, and we have to go back to the times that Mr. McCain and Ms. Jimenez went through with the bearing down, and I'm glad that it was budgeted in to provide and make good for these employees. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. McCain?
No, thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question. We, these bonuses are going to be paid out by the end of this month, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
On the other item, and I don't know if we can talk about some of the others, but are those other adjustments, will they receive bonuses to allow them to catch up? Since the first of the year, first of the contract year, or will that be in one paycheck, or is that going to be spread over, and you may have answered this a minute ago, but is it going to be spread over the next 6 months?
I'm not sure I made it clear earlier.
I believe he's asking how the retroactive pay is going to be paid.
Yes. So for the employees who are receiving retroactive pay, basically we would look at the number of months that have elapsed and what their difference in salary would have been. They would get a payment in their end of January paycheck that would catch them up, and then their monthly increase in salary would move forward from that point forward. So they would get about, give or take, 6 months of catch up for that delta added together,
Yeah.
and then from that point it would just be corrected to the new salary on a I guess a bi-monthly basis.
That'll be great for the economy if all these folks get those bonuses
Stimulus
at the end
checks.
of January, they can spend some money. That's good.
So it's not going to be much. It's going to be pretty sad. But it is an effort and on our parts. And I also wanted to ask how it's going to be taxed, because I find when you give bonus checks like this, it's taxed at, like, instead of the 17%, it's like 33%. How is this taxed?
We will tax it according to the way the IRS requires us to.
I know that. But will it be
There
at
are
the
protocols in a payroll department
I
for
mean,
that.
is that, I mean, because that's what happens, and it's sad, so
Actually, I'm going to
I
ask Mr.
recognize
Morrison
that.
to answer the question.
And it is an effort to do this, right?
They had an answer from him.
Yeah, Mr. Morrison, you
How much, 24? 25?
But
As
remember,
opposed to
it's-
17?
It's not taxed more, all it is withheld more.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not, you're taxed at the still ordinary income, page 1, flows down to AGI, you know.
So tell me, how come it's withheld more then, if we want to get,
Because it has to do with bonuses and things like that. Most companies, little S corps out there, they just throw it into a W-2 wages. But we do it, the school district does it the correct way.
okay.
I mean,
It just that I
that's the
did want to
answer.
weigh in that I think in part 2 from we recognize, the district did make an attempt to recognize those that weren't receiving, and then, although some were, understood, but this is some sort of, the best that we could make to show that there's a need to at least acknowledge that you're valued, and we value you, and we want to pay you something. But it does not, I clearly understand, it is not going to be a big day at Macy's. So that's all I want to say.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And as these were built into the budget, the roughly $400,000 isn't going to affect our liquidity or cash position or anything like that adversely. Thank you.
At this point in the curve, we are collecting most of our taxes, so the cash positive.
Thank you.
Any other? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 5-0. Ms. Stang. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing that I'd like to do is thank you all for the approvals of the different salary adjustments. We are left now with only one employee group that we haven't been able to increase compensation for this year, and that's the CWA. So we are negotiating with the CWA. That's the only employee group that we haven't been able to increase compensation for this year, and we have every intention to do so. But I want our employees to know that, we've been working pretty hard to make sure we can pay people appropriately as much as we can and still stay within the budget.
Thank you. We have no items advertised for discussion. School board matters. Mr. Searcy?
No.
Mr. McCain?
Just very briefly, hot mic scared me. Wanted to kind of reiterate, I know most of those folks are gone. These are hard board meetings. These are not fun things to do, and they're not fun issues to deal with. We got through it, and I know it's a long, non-fun meeting for Dr. Rendell's birthday either tonight, so.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
All right, thanks.
But anyway, we're excited to be in the new space, and I think we're ready to go.
Ms. Munnels? Mr. Frost?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the LPN with Adult Education and Career and Technical for inviting me to their graduation and to congratulate them on a year of hard work. And remember that we're more than just K-12. We also serve other communities. So that was it. And the legislature opened today. Get involved. Call your senator. It's Senator Joe Negron if you're in South County, Senator Thad Altman if you're in North County, and Representative Debbie Mayfield in the House. So get involved and stand up for kids.
Thank you. I think all of us had a hard night tonight, all involved. Teachers, students, board members, and staff. Thank you, staff, for your work. I just find it so sad to hear that, I found it very sad to hear that there were people spitting on the student, and that's horrible. And that's why I think the board made a great decision, and I think, it's really hard to heal after things like this, and it's not over. So the work we do is hard and not easy, but each person up here, although we move as a board, corporate, and the culmination of our decisions is one decision, each one of us brings ourselves to the table, and how we vote and how we can sleep at night is each our own, and the work is not easy up here at times. But tonight was a hard night, but as Mr. McCain said, and Ms. Jimenez and all of us are sitting at the dais, I wanted to thank staff for, I was on the outside looking in, but it seems seamless. Thank you so much to you and your staff for what seemed like an effortless transition. It's like last month we're in another place and boom, the cameras go on. But that took so much work, coordination, and I want to thank staff for all of your employees and for all of the people who made it happen. And to Ms. Stang for your help with the board, thank you so much. It's exciting to be here, and I think it was good to see, although emotional, people participate. I wish we've had more come down, so thank you for coming. Thank you, and that's it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We actually do have a short video clip that we want to show. There are still great things going on in our schools, and we want to make sure that anybody still watching out there and those of us that are still here get to end on a positive note. So tonight's closing video is a different way of looking at how involved our community is in our schools. The video highlights the day in the life of a videographer. Chris Heiser, our own videographer, went out on October 27th just to document some things going on in our schools. He didn't have a list of things going on. He just went out looking for positive things to videotape. And so here's what he's got. So it's a great way to finish the meeting.
The school district of Indian River County has always benefited from an abundance of community involvement and support. This was never more apparent than on Tuesday, October 27th. Here is a small glimpse which paints a huge picture of just how much our community cares about our students. All of the video you are about to see was captured by one district videographer all on the same day. The Vero Beach Museum of Art has partnered with Beachland Elementary and offered each grade level the opportunity to visit and tour the museum. Then, students participate in a related STEAM or science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics activity in one of the museum studios. Beachland Elementary art teacher Leanne R.C. led the hands-on activity, which also featured a math or science component. At the Equestrian Center, which is located west of 66th Avenue in Vero Beach, students from Dodgertown Elementary were gaining experiences beyond the textbook. It started with students learning vocabulary related to horses and their basic needs. Then, working their way up to handling and interacting with the horses. The students not only gained hands-on learning, but also received instruction on the social and emotional component of dealing with animals. Dodgertown principal Liz Tatro said that she always appreciates when a unique opportunity is available. The Marty Fish Children's Foundation after-school tennis program was in full swing at Citrus Elementary. Foundation volunteers were instructing students on cooperative play, eye-hand coordination drills, and beginner tennis activities. Besides providing students with a non-sedentary after-school activity, volunteers also encourage students to follow Marty Fish's 6 healthy habits, which include eating healthy, drinking lots of water, getting enough sleep, brushing and flossing, making friends, and exercising daily. Again, all of these activities were documented on the same day by one videographer.
And with that, meeting adjourned.